Welcome in, welcome in. If you're wondering what took so long, we are currently live on 5 different destinations, and we had to get all of that set up. And I am notoriously technologically illiterate, but it's okay. We got it figured out. We've got a lot of good stuff to talk about, and I've got an awesome panel with me to do just that. Jake, how you doing today?
I'm good, man. It's Friday morning with the fellas. I love it, man. This is I missed out last Friday and I was pissed off. I was like so disappointed. And I'm like, man, I love getting on Friday mornings with my guys. Coach Sean, I've missed you, man. I just want to give you a big hug, Coach Sean, man. Good to see you, bro. Like, oh man, Ty, I'd miss you all the time. It's like if I don't wake up and get a text from Ty, then my day is ruined. So it's
My hair
like
ruining
shoot.
days.
Yeah, dang, dude. Dang. So no, man, I'm excited. It's cool to be in here with you guys. And man, nice to be back on Friday for sure.
Glad to have you in here, man. As always, Coach Sean, how you doing?
Doing good, man. Tired, been grinding, putting in a lot of hours, man, trying to keep these lights on. You see, it's wonderful to have lights. It's wonderful to have electricity. Got to grind out a little bit on the side, man. Been missing my brothers, man. Missing Ty, missing Jake, missing Jance, missing Smoke, missing everybody. About to pick it up, though. Business is about to pick
Yeah.
up. Shout out to everybody.
Business is about to pick up. And speaking of picking up, we just had SEC Media Days, and that always interesting topics. But guys, I got to be honest, and I said this over on the Bama Standard. Shout out to the Bama Standard. Shout out
Yeah.
to the Final Whistle.
Understand it. Yeah.
Whenever we were talking about this topic, I almost felt like a little bit of a Debbie Downer on Tuesday. Right, because they asked me, "Hey Ty, what are you excited to see from Kalen DeBoer? What do you need to see from DeBoer, from the players? What do you need to hear?" I'm going to give you guys my answer, and then I want to hear from y'all about your takes on SEC Media Days. Because for me, and the reason why I felt like a Debbie Downer, as I said, there's really nothing. And the reason I took that position is because one of the beautiful things about a coaching change is that there has been no shortage of access to Kalen DeBoer, to some of these players, to Kane Womack, right? They've done so many different interviews. Well, the flip side of that is that I've heard what I needed to hear, right? I've heard it time and time again because Kalen DeBoer is incredibly well-spoken. You're talking about guys like Tyler Booker, Malachi Moore, who are incredible, thoughtful guys. I've heard what I needed to hear from them. So there wasn't going to be anything, barring something shocking, come SEC Media Days that was really going to move me. So for me, I can't even say I was like even super tuned into SEC Media Days, guys, because I was just like, I've heard everything I needed to hear from the staff. I'm just ready for lack of a better term, the action to start, right? I'm just ready for the football season to be here. Jake, let me know what you thought about SEC Media Days, anything that stood out to you, and am I a Debbie Downer? And you can say yes. That's completely fair.
No, I don't think you're a Debbie Downer when it comes to like maybe the Alabama stuff, just because we've covered it like, from the time Kalen DeBoer's gotten hired to now, and we'll continue to do so. Like it's just been nonstop coverage for Alabama. Typically, I think there might be some ups and downs, some lulls. It doesn't really feel like there's been lulls. I mean, to me at least, as far as the content and what's being covered. And people in the chat, it's good to see you guys. Travel Premier Sports Podcast. What up, my dog? Scott Grable, what's up? Larry Large, what's going on? Mimi. It's good to see Robin here. Patriot Life. It's been a minute.
Patriot
What I'm
Life.
saying? Yo.
Broski,
So
broski.
and everybody, because we are streaming on different platforms, we can't see everyone's comments. I think you might be able to on some of them comment from other places. I'm not 100% sure, but if you can do it, if it's working. If we don't see it, we're sorry, but it's good to see you guys. Poetic Jazz. What's up, MJ? Good to see you, man. Jermaine, what's up? But yeah, so we get into it, and I think SEC Media Days I thought it was a lot of fun this year with Saban. I think that made it really entertaining. Like there's just so many little aspects to his comments, obviously with Sarkisian, with Kiffin, right? So with Kirby Smart. I loved seeing that interaction. I loved Kiffin, Lane Kiffin roasting Paul Feinbaum
That
on
was good.
basically saying
That was
you
good.
got him fired. Hilarious. And like Lane was like dead serious. You know, he's like, when you saw him, he's like sad about it. He's like, well, dude, you basically just like you screwed me over, dude. And Paul's like trying to be that, you know, the media person over here, like, well, it was just all. And Blaine's like, no, you screwed my life up. You screwed my entire life up. But thanks, at least I got to Alabama because of you. Yeah, it's super funny. So I thought there was a lot of stuff, right, that all came in. Some good takeaways. I think Texas Sarkisian did a good job of coming in from the Texas standpoint of media and not being like overly, because right, Texas gets a lot of hype. You know what I mean? And from the media gives them a lot of love. And I feel like Sarkisian presented it in the correct way. But you know who really impressed me, I think the most was Brent Venables and company at Oklahoma. The way he came across was like, we're prepared. Yes, bring the challenge. And everybody's had the same message. You know, obviously Alabama's always going to be impressive, right? But for Oklahoma to kind of be the one team everyone had a question mark on for the longest time, right? And for them to present it the way they did, you could feel there's this quiet confidence, like that fighter's confidence, right? So I was very impressed with how they went about it. But man, it just gets you pumped for the season. And the end of the month is coming, baby. That's the real start of it all. Let's go. So yeah, it was good. It was fun.
Yeah, 100%. Coach Sean, let me know your thoughts.
From me, man, I was glad to see them give Coach Saban love. Shout out to
Mhm.
everybody in the chat, man. My broski, Patriot Life, Trevor Paneer, me, everybody in the chat, man. There's so many of you guys. Roll Tide to you all, and thank you for tapping in for sure on everybody's channels. For me, I was really glad to see them give Coach Saban his flowers, all those guys, because you know I don't like dissing other coaches, but let's be honest. Kirby made his bones at Alabama. Really followed the GOAT and his style of what he's doing right now with his own flavor mixed in with it, right? But you know, to see him give Coach Saban his flowers, to see Sark, who at the time was not a hot coach, was not a hot coach. A lot of people didn't really want to deal with him after what he had been through. Came in Alabama as an assist as what do you call it? What is it when Lane was there and you just help
Offensive
assistant
analyst
analyst? Yeah, an
or
analyst came
quality
in. You
control. Yeah.
yeah, you were an analyst, quality control.
Mhm.
You weren't, you weren't very popular at the time. Off the field things following him. So to give him a platform at the University of Alabama and a genre or a stage, if you will, to show his skills and really get back and like, oh, he still can coach. Okay, win a national championship. Lane, you know, it doesn't end with these coaches. You know,
Mhm.
to get these guys, give Coach Saban love. I really enjoyed that. I was really anxious to see Texas and Oklahoma, what their energy would be at SEC Day. It was just as I expected. Very humble, but at the same time, letting you know we're not afraid.
Yep.
I really enjoyed listening to Venerables and
Mhm.
Sark.
Mhm.
Sark obviously being very familiar with what's going on here of recent, just a few years ago, and playing a few SEC teams, you know, in the future and in the past, Alabama and Georgia. So it's very interesting, man. It's very interesting. Shout out to my broski from another Moski, Patriot Life. Good to see you,
Boom.
Rob. Good to see you, bro. Really good to see you guys. Thank you.
Yeah.
So it was interesting, man. But I'm not a real big I think Steve Spurrier said it best. I enjoy it because it means the football season is really about to be here.
Mhm.
But talking season is just that, talking
Mhm.
season. You know, I'm not really a big fan because it gives me false hope. It gives me, oh, it's media day. The season's about
Yeah.
to be here. Damn it, I
Yeah.
gotta wait a whole nother month, you know. So I try not to get too, you know, I don't want to take it, you know, so good because I get excited with football.
Oh yeah.
SEC Media Day comes, I'm excited. Damn, I gotta wait a long time, man. So I listen to it, but I don't really get too wrapped up in it, you know. But talking season is here. Everybody sort of sold their programs. I tell you who did a quiet, good job, and that's Eli Drinkwitz. I think Coach Drinkwitz from
Mm.
Missouri did a really good job of selling his program. You can definitely tell he's in his bag and feeling himself a little bit in Missouri. You could definitely tell. That's not the same old Missouri, man. These
Mhm.
guys speak with confidence. They talk like they know something that we don't, right? And it's a selling your program season, especially when you're somebody like Missouri coming off an Ohio State win, going into the season as with some high expectations, a little higher than usual.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed Texas A&M's coach. Really enjoyed Texas A&M's coach coming from Duke.
Elko. Yeah.
Yeah, Elko, Mike Elko. I
Mhm.
really enjoyed his. Those are the guys that I really wanted to see. Pittman always sells me. Love Sam Pittman. Sam Pittman could sell me his tennis shoes right now, and I'd buy them. Right? Love Sam Pittman, bro. Love that dude. I'd play for him any day of the week. So I try to take in SEC Media Day, but I try to pull myself back a little bit because I mess around and get fired up over here with SEC Media Day. We still got whoever knows how long to go, right? So I take it what it is. Marquita, my neighbor. Shout out to Marquita. So good to see you, Marquita. Good to see you, man. Shout out to everybody in the chat on all
Keto.
the channels. Much love to you, all of you.
Shout out to Patriot Life for the $50 donation. Thank you for being here. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Marquita, good to see you as we continue to talk SEC Media Days. And I got to agree. I think the highlight of it was probably Lane Kiffin roasting
Yeah,
Paul
Lane.
Feinbaum. Right?
Yeah.
That was hilarious.
It was
But
so funny.
It's just one of those things, man, where it's like, oh my gosh, we've heard so much of this. Like, I'm just so ready for football to get here that
Mhm.
I am just... I'm just ready for kickoff, man. I'm just ready for kickoff. But I do agree. I think that there were some interesting takeaways. I thought Brent Venables talking about how they didn't handle success well was interesting,
Huh.
right?
Yep.
And listen, I think that one of the things, like, a lot of Texas fans got after Oklahoma fans because they were like, oh, well, after the Red River rivalry, y'all won and you were making shirts and like selling them, the players were, which is all good. We're in NIL, but you had Brent Venables consistently posing in these pictures with the players. And at the time, I was like, I don't necessarily have a problem with that, but can you imagine Nick Saban doing that, right? Like that would never happen, right? I don't even think. But to hear Venables then say like, hey, it started with me. I didn't handle the success well. And gentlemen, I don't know if y'all heard this. Who did he reach out to?
Nick Saban.
Nick Saban.
Mhm.
Like I said, I never had a problem with the shirt thing
Yeah.
from Oklahoma. So don't get it confused. But at the same time, I think if you are Brent Venables and you're looking back, you're like, okay, that wasn't what caused us to have a slide.
Mhm.
But it's a collection of things akin to that where we didn't handle success well that caused us to have a slide. Because guys, remember they were in a position to get a college football playoff spot after beating Texas, squeaked by the week after on a great play by, if I'm not mistaken, Billy Bowman. Didn't he have a huge play? Really sealed the deal for them. But they had a few games where it was kind of squirrely, right? They ended up being 10-2, but it was not a comfortable few games, to say the least. The reason I give that to you is this. You can't know what to improve on if you don't acknowledge where you fell short. Brent Venables got up there and acknowledged, this is where I think I fell short. This is where we fell short, and because I'm the head guy, it starts with me. When I heard that, I was even more convinced, and those of you will know I'm already a Brent Venables believer, but I was even more convinced that, like, hey, this is a good move, right? Like, having Brent is a great thing for Oklahoma. The guy is always acknowledging what he doesn't know. It's one of the things Jant said this, and I always talk about what Jant said. Gentlemen, I think you'll remember. We were sitting there on the live stream waiting for Kalen DeBoer to take the microphone. Coach Sean, do you remember this? And I don't know who it was. I think it may have even been Jant's. He was like, what do y'all need to hear him say to really be sold? And we went around, and then it came back to Chance, and he said something that has stuck with me for going on 7 months now. And he said, I need to hear him say, I don't know how to recruit the SEC. I don't know how to do these things. And I think at the time that can sound like a weird take. But as more time goes on, as you really start thinking about it, you realize that's a great take.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Acknowledging what you don't know is power, because that's how you can improve. And I've always, a lot of the times when I'm talking about these coaches, ever since he said that, that's been at the forefront of my mind.
Oh, yeah.
That's been something that's really stuck with me. So loved hearing that from Venables, acknowledging, we didn't do as well as we could have, but I've learned from those mistakes. What did Kendrick say, Coach Sean? He said the first time the homie told me to shoot the Drake, he told me to aim it this way. I aimed too low, but I'm here to show you I learned from those mistakes.
Boom. All
right?
facts. And that's great, man. That's the kind of coach you want. That's Nick Saban-esque. When do you ever hear Saban patting himself on the back? He'll tell you, he'll take the mistake of the players and put it on himself. That is how you know Oklahoma is going to be a threat. They have a guy that understands the league, that understands that you got to play defense, that understands I got to have an offense that can keep up with some of these offenses and not put my defense in a bad situation, and that the team will run through a wall for their head coach. All dangerous factors, all things that Oklahoma have right now. This season is going to be hella crazy, man, because I think Texas is going to be well. I think Oklahoma is going to be well. Shit, I think, I think Missouri is going to be well. I think Bama's going to be well. Man, it's going to be crazy, man. With the long season that we have, man, and the college football playoff letting 12 teams in, brothers, it's going to be crazy. And I can't wait to get it kicked off.
Well, and I guess here's a question, Jake, I'll start with you.
Yeah.
Because there's another topic I want to get into. But as always on this show, I say this, I swear, once every 2 weeks. None of this is scripted, ladies and gentlemen. Like Coach Sean, Jake, they don't know what's in my mind whenever we come here. And I do that purposefully, not to set anybody up. Mm-hmm. I don't plan topics that I don't think that the panel we have is going to be knowledgeable on. There's a reason why I rock with the people I rock with, right? Because they know these topics. But the reason why I don't script is because I want this to feel conversational. I want this to feel like we're all out at lunch and the conversation can go anywhere and we're not constricted by any sort of outline or anything like that. So, Jake, will the SEC have any teams go undefeated, or will the conference absolutely cannibalize itself? Because the more I look at this, the more I'm like, we are in for a rough one. Not Alabama. I mean the SEC. I think the conference is going to eat itself alive.
That's a great question. Just because, I mean, I think we've all looked at this from these powerful teams. And Tony, what's going on? Miss Shelby, First Lady, what's up? Shelby's great. Shelby McDonald. She does her own kind of side of things. She's the Georgia, but she does an awesome job. Love Shelby a lot. And so I got to tell you, it's interesting because yes, that very well could be the case where we do have these because everyone's like, do we have a bunch of 10-3 teams, or do we have a bunch of like 9-4 teams, right? Or here's the next thing of it. This is kind of what I've been thinking. This is the route I'm going with. Or do we have like a top maybe 2-3 teams, right? Depending. Do we have 2 or 3 teams that do really put it together really fast, right? And because what's going to happen, you're going to see is SEC media days, it's like going in there. It's like Game of Thrones right now, right? That's a good comparison because everyone's walking in there realizing like the king is gone. Okay. And they're saying, wait a minute, Saban, he might be here. What's up, Mars? How you doing, brother? He might be here back there talking, but you know what I'm saying? The king is off the throne. This is the time to take the throne. So everybody's walking in like that king rooster, right? The chest is up. They're walking in, coming in. They want to speak confidence about their program. The truth is going to be, though, in the details, as Sean says, right? Truth is in the details, baby. The facts are going to be what happens when we get on the field. And I don't know. I think we do have a lot of teams, but I think we also have a small category for elite teams. I think you're going to see that with Georgia, right? You are going to see them being elite. Now, Kirby said something in SEC Media Days that caught me a little off guard because I don't think Kirby technically gives up information like that. But when he was talking with Nick Saban, he full on admitted, he goes, like, the one area where the weakest at is going to be at safety. You know what that does for their defense? That's scary because they have a lot of question marks and unknowns. Boom. What's up, brother? They have a lot of question marks also at the defensive line. Yeah, they have some really good players. It's not like we're going to sit there and say they're not good, right? But at the same time, like if your head coach is going, man, we're going to be really young, we're going to see a lot of youth on the field. You're going, okay, this is going to be interesting to see, right? Because Kirby just basically said it. And that's just in a free conversation. He kind of offers that little tidbit, right? And it's interesting to pick up on pieces, right? Well, it's funny because when you're in law enforcement, that's kind of what you do, right? You listen in on a conversation, you pick up on pieces, and you start to say, okay, what's real and what's fake? What's implanted, right? And what's not implanted. Ty, we talked about this last time. And Sean, just be interesting to hear your opinion real quick before we get into the continuing with these this conference eating them alive. But what about what Saban said? I think that you'll see Texas and Georgia, right? SEC. I don't think Alabama is going to be SEC champion. Their secondary has a lot of question marks. I'm going to be honest with you. Do you think that was strategic, or do you think he was just being straight? I think it was a mixture of both.
A little
right?
bit of both, yeah.
A little bit of both. Yeah. And we kind of discussed it last time, but it's crazy because Saban has a unique way of motivating teams, right? Because now then you saw all the players start to comment on it. You know what I mean? Like the great comment. I absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
the guy in the mom's basement commented towards Saban. That was hilarious. God, that got me. That was good. But the truth is they heard it. And if you do not think they're all taking like especially the guys in the secondary, because there's a lot of youth and a lot of new faces there. You don't think Malachi's telling everybody, guess what? Guess what? Guess what Saban just said about us in this secondary? And that's a position he used to coach. He recruited that whole secondary. Besides, I guess, 1, 2, 3 guys. Okay. But at the same time, they're all going to take notice. Very interesting, and very interesting about the conversation, right? With Kirby or with Lane or with even DeBoer. So I like it, man. I think that you're going to see Georgia. They're going to be one of those elite teams. Okay. I think they if anybody can go undefeated, I would say it's either going to be Georgia or it's going to be Bama. I don't see any other team though going undefeated. It's just, and even with Bama, even with Georgia, there are points in the schedule where you can say, okay, like we are at Oklahoma. I think that's going to be a really hard game. It's right before the Iron Bowl. I personally think that is going to be one of our hardest games. The Georgia coming, it's going to be a hard game. Tennessee is going to be a difficult game, right? Like there's not really a whole lot you can sit there and be like, oh, what's going to be easy? What's going to be hard, right? So the two teams, if any two teams do go undefeated, I think I will say it's going to be either Georgia or Alabama. But do I see that happening? Not necessarily, but I do see an elite tier where guys will stay. You'll have these set, right, of guys there, and then you'll have a set of a multiple loss teams down below. So that's kind of my opinion on it.
Well, listen, Coach Sean, before I give it to you, you talked about Kentucky, Jake, and I just want to let it be known that in my college football dynasty year 1, I didn't play Georgia in the SEC championship. I ended up playing Kentucky in the SEC championship. I'm just saying.
Wow.
I'm just saying. Is there
They're
something
physical.
Is there
I'll give
something
them that.
they want us to know? Is there Coach Sean, talk to me about the state of the SEC. Because like I said to Jake before, he just gave us that great take. Is the more I look at this, the more I think I don't And I'm not saying that I think you're going to have a bunch of 3-loss teams. That's not my contention. I just don't think that there's going to be an undefeated squad coming out of the SEC. What do you think?
I don't think so, man. When you look at Georgia, and Jake spoke eloquently about it. I don't think so, bro, because when you look at Georgia, man, I told you I had players tell me, that Kentucky was one of those games that when you played those, how you play on Saturday and you play Pisgah High School, I don't know, and you still go out with your friends on Saturday night, you're not really beat up like that. They said Kentucky wasn't that week. Kentucky was that week when you didn't feel like going nowhere. You have a 3:30, 2:30 game. You come home, eat, take a shower, hang out a little while, and you going home, go to bed. Kentucky is physical. Georgia plays those guys on the road the week before they play. Well, I'm sure it's a week in between, but they got Bama after their bye week. It's Kentucky, bye week, Alabama. Then they got Auburn at home.
Well,
Then they
thank
got
God
Mississippi State. Yeah. So these guys have Kentucky on the road. That Clemson game is not going to be a pushover. They'll beat Clemson, but that's going to be a good test for them early, right? They have Kentucky on the road, then they have a bye week, then they have Bama on the road. Then they got to come in to go to Auburn. I mean, no, Auburn comes to Georgia, excuse me. Then Mississippi State and Texas, and those are back to back. So, man, you have one hiccup, and you're gonna look up in the fourth quarter, and you're gonna be in a fight. So I think Georgia could possibly pull it out, but to beat Texas and Bama on the road, man, that's going to be tough for them. That's going to be tough for them, especially with the blueprint out there. Listen, it's no coincidence. I mean, I know this is not a popular opinion amongst Georgia fans, but if you really about your football, you know what I'm about to say is the truth. It's no coincidence you played Alabama 6 times and lost 5 of them. It's no coincidence. It's you won't be able to line up and bully Alabama the way you have everybody else. Your own players even say that, right? It doesn't work against that team. And I think on the road at Texas, these guys are going to have a tough time. Texas is going to play above their head at home. They'll do the same thing they did with us on the road. There'll be a record sellout. They'll cut the heat off. They'll cut the AC off in the locker room and won't let their band come and all these ridiculous things that Texas does to give them an advantage. I think Georgia could still win that game, obviously, but these are going to be some tough games for Georgia. So I do not think it's going to be an undefeated team this year in the SEC. I think they made the schedule to garner that. I do think, not even being a homer, I think when you look at Alabama's schedule, I think Alabama could potentially win every game on that schedule. The game against Oklahoma is going to be very tough, but that's going to be a tough game for Oklahoma too. Trust me.
Yep.
The game against Georgia, we all know if we play Georgia, I'd much rather play them in Bryant-Denny, right? It's just going to be very interesting, but I don't think it's going to be an undefeated team. I don't think it's going to be if it's an undefeated team, it'll be Ohio State because they just don't play a lot of people. They play, no disrespect, they just don't play a lot of people. They play a Michigan team. I mean, yeah, they play Michigan, but they'll be super motivated to play Michigan. Michigan lost a lot of great talent, man, a lot of talent. Oregon will be a tough game, but if they can some kind of way get by Oregon, I don't see nobody beating them in that conference because of what they play. They don't really have a lot of tough games. It'll come down to the playoffs. Remember this too before I give it to you guys back. When you have this many games to play, sometimes it's not even about the best team. It's the most healthy team.
Yeah, that's huge. Huge. I mean, real quick on that too. I think that's going to be, a lot of people have said the same thing over and over. They've said when it comes down to it, it's going to be depth, right?
Yeah.
And you have to look at these teams and say, okay, who has depth? And then also who can maintain like composure. And that really falls into like what head coaches you have in your locker room. Like who are the guys who are not going to fall pressure or fall victim to the pressure? I've heard the takes of DeBoer being like somebody to fall victim to pressure, whereas because he's taking over he's taking over the king's chair and everybody's going after him for it. Again, I've said it over and over again. There's not a better person to take over that spot. He just does not feel pressure like others. It's just not who he is. I mean, he has a unique mindset, right? Like it's crazy, but at the same time, there are a lot of coaches who do a great job of keeping composure. Kirby's one of them. Like I I listen to Kirby a lot. I listen to the way he coaches, his defensive mindset, right? And I listen to him on SC Media Day. He's one of those guys where you're like, man, shoot, Bama. It was awesome to have him at Alabama because he was phenomenal, right? Brent Venables is another one. So, it's going to be interesting to see for sure. You're right. That health aspect for real.
Mm-hmm.
So both of you being, former football players, former coaches, I don't even know that I'll need to finish the statement I'm about to say. I think I'll probably get 3 words in and you'll be able to finish it. Because whenever, I was in college, one of the things I was blessed with is both of my roommates were former college football players. And so we would watch games on Saturday. We would watch games on Sunday, and it wasn't just watching. I mean, these guys were talking coverages, they were talking scheme, they were talking all of this. And that's how I kind of really started. I was always a football fan, but that's how I started seeing the game from a different perspective, seeing it from a player's perspective. And certainly, I still can't compare to either of these gentlemen in actually breaking down the nuances of football, but I do what I can, right? But a term I heard and a phrase I heard from these guys time and time and time and time again, Coach Sean, it goes to what you're saying. The best ability is availability.
Facts.
And I've often wondered if the college football landscape is getting real squirrely. There's no undefeated teams, or maybe there's one undefeated team, and hey, I can drop a game and not worry about it. Do you bench a lot of your top guys to get depth developed, right? Because it's a double-edged sword. You get to develop some of the younger guys who may very well see some time in playoffs. What better time to get them acclimated as before, and you can keep some of your guys healthy. I've often wondered if we'll see that, right? And I think that there are some coaches out there who just aren't cut from that cloth. They're like, no, I'm going to, I'm going to hit you with my best shots every single game, and I respect it. But I will certainly understand if there's a coach who's like, we have a running back or a wide receiver who maybe their ankle is tweaked. They could play. They've been playing in these other games, but now we're playing Bishop Sycamore this week. So I'm going to let him go ahead and rest, and we're going to get the next guy up, get him some game time, get him some live reps. And then when we play in our conference championship, boom, now he's 2-3 weeks healthier than he would be. I'm interested to see how that works. Because like you said, Coach Sean, there's just so many games. Adam, happy to see you in here. Coach Al, happy to see you in here. Adam saying Ty stays in a bad mood. Yeah, cheer up, Ty. It's right. Guys, I listen, a little backstory before we get into this next topic. I'm deathly afraid of flying. Right? Like I am genuinely deathly afraid of flying. I do not like flying in airplanes. I don't like it at all. They damn near have to sedate me every single time. All right. And I'm supposed to be flying to Virginia tomorrow morning, and now I see all of these planes are grounded, and I'm wondering if I'm not just going to rent a car and head out early in the morning and just drive my way and take a little stop, maybe in Nashville, Tennessee. Who knows? And then go from there. I don't know, though. I don't know. Ricky saying I was a jumper in the Army. Ricky, God bless.
God bless. Yeah, that's pretty dope. That's cool as hell, man.
You'd have made fun of me. I'd been in the back like, no.
You'd be the guy they throw out the plane.
Yeah, they'd throw me out.
They'd be like, go. Just launch you off the side.
Ricky would have thrown me off the plane 100%.
You're up, brother.
Hey, but listen, Ricky, meet me halfway. At least I'm self-aware. I'm not saying that makes it right. I'm just saying that makes me, step one of the 10-step process is I'm self-aware. I'm the guy who yells, oh my God, when the plane takes off and says it's too heavy to fly. Yeah. Oh boy. Good morning, Southern Red. Edward saying, yeah, you're not the only one, Ty. And then Boomer saying road trip. I don't know, man. It'd just be me driving. That's the only thing. It's an 18-hour drive, so it's a ways.
Dude, that's the best. Because you can stop and just see what you want to see. You know what I'm saying? You're not on anybody else's schedule. You just do whatever you want to do. You know?
You ever worked for Mr. T? Nah, I haven't. I don't know, man. I don't know. I need to figure it out. Shout out to Keyway in the chat, giving love to Coach Sean. Mm-hmm. Love to see it as always. All right,
man.
Enough about my fear of flying. Even Poetic saying I'm in the Air Force and I don't love flying, especially civilian aircraft. That's not helping. Poetic, it's certainly not helping. I might be hitchhiking to Virginia tomorrow. Y'all might see a story. Breaking news: local idiot walking down side of highway.
What's the drive? Ty?
18 hours.
Oh man, you better get on that plane, bro. You better get on that plane, bro. Yeah. Listen, ass sore. Get on the plane, bro. Trust me. Just get on the plane. Close your eyes. You know, a little turbulence gonna make you freak out. Trust me. But just get on the plane, bro, and just stay prayed up, and you're gonna be just fine. 18 hours, bro. No, plane. Here I come.
Bro, I'll be like driving Miss Daisy.
Hey, it's all good.
My whole thing is, it's like I was meant to be on the ground. You know what I mean? Like this is my domain. That's not my domain.
Look, some about being 30,000 up, and you look out that window, you just say to yourself, "Well, if this thing fall out the sky, I guess it's over with."
Oh man, that's it. I told Ty, I said, you know, I just go with the whole thing, like just say, you know, F it, right? Like Yellowstone, I'm just like, F it. It is what it is. It's gonna have something's gonna happen. Whether it's gonna be good or bad at this point, who knows? So just F it. That's what
even at this point, like I'm even wondering if I'd get there quicker, because if the flights are still canceled tomorrow, because everything's grounded right now, they're still canceled tomorrow. I mean, it might equal out to be the exact same way. I mean, people are sleeping in the airport right now at DFW, which DFW, for any of you that have flown into DFW, I'm sorry. Coach, have you ever flown into DFW?
Sucks.
I have not. What's going on with it? Is it?
It's just massive. Don't get me wrong. It's a nice airport. Like, it is nice. There are genuine, like, you have Papados inside of DFW. Like, you have restaurants like the Riata, which is a very nice restaurant here in North Texas. It's like a Texas Western cooking inside DFW. It's a really nice airport. It's spread out. But the only reason I say I'm sorry is it is such a populated. I mean, it's always busy. It's always packed. No, don't get me wrong, Adam. I do definitely agree with you. I do. It's not the worst. And the way it's set up. So the crazy thing about DFW, Coach Sean, and then we'll get back to football. I apologize.
It's all good.
Listen, we're in the off season, so we're streamers at this point, right? We're going to talk about it.
Yeah, I feel you, Southern Red. Same.
Listen, I haven't flown in there, but I will definitely, give you the. Yeah, I'll give that to you, because this is the one thing about DFW that saves it. It's not one building. Mm-mm. Each terminal is a separate building.
How many is there? Like 3 or 4?
There's a lot.
Remember, like you have to take the train to each one. This sucks.
Yeah,
it's
I heard about that.
Yeah, it sucks.
It's on, like, I don't know. It's on a massive plot of land. I mean, it's so spread out that you really kind of you don't feel the heat, right? Could be canceled. Yeah, I know. I might just have to drive. Yeah, Coach Sean, I don't know if you saw it. It's the largest. It's something to do with the software.
Yeah.
It's all the software is messed up, and all the planes right now from like Delta, American, all these places are grounded. And that's where I'm like, I'm already terrified of flying, and now you're telling me you're having software issues? Boy, get me in a Tesla. I'll be out there self-driving.
There you go.
New Virginia. I did not go to. Yeah,
that's a big decision. I don't mind
18. Driving though. I like driving.
Man, I drive to Chicago, man. It's like 8.5 from where I'm at, and I'm like, damn, man, this is horrible,
Brutal.
awful. 18. Whoo, I don't know, Ty. That's big boy driving right there, brother. Just be careful, whatever you do. You
Yep.
know.
I did not go to SEC Media Days, Boomer. I did not go to SEC Media Days. But that gets us into the next topic. I apologize for y'all having to be exposed to. That's not a good word, right? Especially like
Exposed.
the connotation here recently. For y'all
Holy
having to
smokes.
be subjected to my fear. Yeah, every time exposed is one of those words, man, where you say it and you're just like, ugh.
Oh, I know. I used to write it a lot. You got a lot of people who do the exposed thing in Washington. It's all good.
Oh, God's mercy. Okay. Moving on. Yeah, Boomer, it was in my backyard, but not for me.
It's all good.
I'm very much I don't know. I was like, what am I gonna do there? I'm gonna listen, which I'm gonna listen at home.
Yep.
I don't know. It looked cool though. Looked cool, but yeah, I just I didn't head out there. But I wanted to talk about this because 24/7 Sports put together a list that I find to be fascinating. So first off, I want to give credit where it's due. Where is this? Shout out to Brad Crawford.
Brad
Just got
Crawford.
done watching boxing highlights last night, and Bud Crawford is very much excited for his next fight. But shout out to Brad Crawford. Put together an incredible list over at 24/7 Sports. If you guys haven't seen it, I very much encourage you to check it out. Brad always puts together great stuff. And this list is certainly no exception. So excited to get into it. Lance saying those Bama dudes hit Terry Blacks every day, $75 for a rib, but worth it. I've never had Terry Blacks, Lance.
No, I haven't either.
Because I'm going to tell you this right here. It's hard for me when I have a smoker in the back to pay $75 for like some barbecue, because I could just go get like a prime, like a real nice brisket for like $70 and feed a family.
Oh, so
with
good.
That. So it's like, but I that's not to say that Terry Blacks isn't great, because I've never heard anything bad about it. I always just hear incredible things. But Brad Crawford put together a great list over at 24/7 Sports talking about the coaches and talking about the top coaches out there in terms of their results against top 25 opponents. So I want to get into this. And I'm going to go from the lowest to the highest. Shane, I'm going to star that comment right there about Michael Carroll. We'll talk about that after we talk about this, because that's.
Then Ty, I was going to tell you, man, BMXM and Shane, it's good to see you guys, because we haven't seen. I don't think I've seen Shane or BMXM since Bama football day or Bama
I've
football on
seen
YouTube.
Shane, but I haven't seen BXM. Good
Oh
to see
man,
y'all.
Yeah, what up, dude? Love it.
Yeah, thank y'all for being here. No doubt about it.
JP,
So I'm gonna start this off going from the guys who are ranked the lowest in terms of ranked win percentage, going up to the number one, because I think people are going to be both shocked and pleased at number one. At the lowest, at 2-26, and this one hurt. This one hurt because I do like this coach, was Mike Loxley. With a 7% win percentage against top 25 opponents. And, Brad makes a great point in the article saying that he plays the likes of a Penn State, an Ohio State, a Michigan, right? Like, he plays all these teams that are usually ranked, that have far more resources, that have far more talent. But man, if there was one team out there, guys, that I really wish could kind of piece it together, it would be Maryland, because I think that their location is prime. The DMV is filled with talent.
Yep.
Loaded with talent. Baltimore is usually loaded with talent. That whole East Coast is loaded with talent. And I've always really wanted Loxley to succeed out at Maryland. But what are y'all's thoughts hearing Mike Loxley 2-26 against top 25 opponents?
What do you think, Coach?
For me, man, it has a lot more to do with the structure of the university he's coaching at than it
Mhm.
does his coaching ability. It's tough. I mean, when's the last time a coach really won 10 games in Maryland? I mean, I can't think of it off my head. I'm
Mhm.
sure it's happened, but I mean, DJ Dirk, I mean, these guys, Maryland is a tough place to win because of, listen, if you don't have just a football school, a school that's willing to pay the price, a school that's willing to take these recruiting trips across country, a team that's willing to gas that plane up and pay a couple thousand and go see a kid 4 or 5 states over. If you're not will have a school that's willing to do that 3, 4, 5 times a week, you may possibly not be very successful, especially in this climate. Um, Maryland to me is where Kentucky was a few years back before they hired Mark Stoops.
Mm.
Um, it's a basketball school if you ask me. Um, you got to have the resources, man. That's why Coach Saban used to always tell his assistants, don't jump at the first job. Don't jump at the
Mhm.
first job. Make sure that the structure of the school is right. Make sure that the alumni, the administration, the compliance is right for football. Make sure you go to a school that's going to support you and willing to pay the price to get these great kids to come and give you the resources you need to camp, to throw these shindigs, to create bells and whistles, to build structures, to do all the things that's necessary for you to be successful in football. And I just think, man, Maryland is, I like Maryland, right? But I think you can only go so far with that administration until their mindset changes and be 100% all in on football. And I think Coach Loxley is a great coach, but I think that speaks to the resources and the footing of the university he's coaching at and the people he's going against.
I
Yeah,
like
Jake.
that. It's interesting too because Mike's a good coach. Everyone always puts Maryland as that team that's like sneaky. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? They label them if you play Maryland, especially with this last season. But with Mike coming there, they're kind of like sneaky. They're definitely, I would say, a team that to pay attention to as far as up and coming. Like they're starting to recruit better. Over this time frame, it will be interesting to see how they put it all together on the field, right? Like as Loxley really gets things rolling.
Yeah.
I think it's an interesting one, but at the same time, I wouldn't say, okay, you're at Boston College, and I can't remember where else he's been. Does anyone know? Do you guys know where else he's been? Where Mike's been?
Lux.
Yeah,
Let
besides
me look it
I know
up.
he was at Alabama at one point, right? That's how he gets that Maryland spot. But
Yeah.
So he has been. He was the wide. So I mean, he's got a
head coaching wise, though,
head coaching wise. New
hmm
Mexico,
yeah,
Maryland. He was the
hmm
interim at Maryland in 2015,
okay.
and
So
then came back to Maryland in 2019.
yeah, so I mean, you wouldn't expect him to have like these crazy numbers right now. You know what I'm saying? Not saying like that has a whole lot to do with it, but at the same time it does. Because you're a head coach at a bigger program that maybe recruits a little better. Besides, I think you look at everyone besides Kalen DeBoer, because that his first time was like 2 years ago, really. So and that's just the honest truth with him. But I think with him, yeah, it's surprising, but not expected to be up on that list yet. I think in time you'll see him go up that list because he is a good coach. Maryland's just one of those teams. So,
And he's from the area.
yep.
Yeah.
He was born in DC. And it's actually kind of crazy, guys, whenever you look at this, like how many times he has been at Maryland, right? And the reason I say that, 1997, he was the running back coach at Maryland. 1998 to 2002, he was the running back and running game coordinator at Maryland. Then he went to Florida from 2003 to 2004, Illinois from 2005 to 2008, just in different capacities. Head coach of New Mexico from 2009 to 2011, back to Maryland from 2012 to 2015, where he was the offensive coordinator, quarterback coach, and then interim head coach. Alabama, offensive analyst in 2016, 2017, co-offensive coordinator, wide receivers coach, 2018 at Alabama, was the offensive coordinator, and now back to Maryland in 2019. So he has ties to the area. I really, really want them to succeed. Now, this is something crazy, guys. He's a really good I like his offensive scheme. He was a defensive back.
Yeah. Well, but you know what's funny?
That's cool.
With coaching, Ty, and Sean, you'd probably say the same thing with this, is you almost, in the craziest way, because in order to perfect your craft, especially when it comes to coaching something different, you can look at a defense, know what's going on defensively, step to the offensive side of the ball, and as you pick up some of the more technical things about it, right, and more of the key schemes, you can then look at a defense and know exactly your mindset of how you would play a defense versus the offense, and then know where to attack. There tends to be some interesting ways that guys combat that, where you see, like, you look at Dave Merritt, right? He's a defensive back coach, Ty. For Kansas City, like 5 Super Bowl rings, and Dawson, obviously his son, stud. They absolutely love Dawson, excited for him at Alabama. But with Dave, like he didn't play defensive back in college. You know what I'm saying? Like it's funny how you can go to different spots and learn stuff and then utilize it to maximize yourself in another position. So wild.
Moving forward to the next name on the list with a 9% winning percentage against top 25 teams, going 2-19, is Matt Rule. Now, this one is interesting to me because Matt Rule is a guy that when you talk to a lot of football guys out there, they're excited about the prospect of him being able to turn around, or hopefully turn around, Nebraska. Now, Nebraska is one of those teams where they just have not had the success that they have wanted to have for far too long, quite frankly. And it's going to be fascinating to see what ends up happening. Jake, what do you think when you hear Matt Rule 9% winning percentage against top 25 teams, 2-19?
I don't think he was in the college game like necessarily long enough. And I do think the programs that he took over, like we look at, everyone talks about him and what he's able to do in a short period of time, right? Because he has a lot of success really fast in comparison to like his college head coaching aspect, right? And so I think with Matt, what's interesting with him is he then takes the next opportunity and then he's off, right? Now he's back. I think it will be fun to watch Matt at Nebraska, because I do think we are going to see a quick turnaround at Nebraska. I mean, I've said it earlier in the year when we've talked about recruiting, like Nebraska's recruiting and what they're doing there. One thing that's impressed me for the most part about Nebraska is their fan base too has done a good job of supporting, but they've also really respected the fact of like saying, hey, we're okay not getting every single guy that shows up on campus, because they could have, again, I go back to this thing with Dawson Merritt. That was a recruiting battle between Alabama and Nebraska. And one thing Nebraska fans, a lot of them had to say, and I'm not saying every single one of them, but a lot of them had to say, is they respected the fact of how both teams went about the recruiting, and they gave Bama they said, hey, congratulations to you guys. We wish Dawson the best. You saw a lot of people say that. I have a lot of respect for that in the fan base of them stepping aside and saying that. And I think that's the culture Matt's building there, of saying we're going to compete to get the best, to be one of the best. You see that they brought in, and I don't think he's in the contention now, but at one point they brought in David Sanders, right? Junior. And it looks like Coach Sean had to step out for a sec, but maybe just some connection stuff, but that's just the way it rolls right now, just like the airplanes. But I think with what he's doing in Nebraska, he's getting people excited. I think Dylan Raiola is going to do great. They definitely have some pieces in place. I'm going to be honest, it's one team I'm definitely going to pay attention to this year. I am going to watch a lot of Nebraska football because I want to see how transformative he is from year 1 to year 2. because we're going to get a good idea of what we'll see then going into year 3, which is typically, we like to say year 3 and 4 are those years you should see a team start to make some serious progress if they have the right stuff in place. So surprising, but not surprising. He's another one, right? Just doesn't have enough time, I think.
Yeah, and I also love your point about, before I pass this to Coach Sean, one thing that stands out to me about Matt Rule, he doesn't take over good programs.
Mm-mm.
Right. And so that's, whenever I look at this, my first reaction is like, really? But then when you really start thinking about it, you're like, okay, well, he inherited a terrible Baylor program, did great things there. He's inherited, no disrespect, Nebraska fans. My dad was a Nebraska fan, so I do hold your program in high regards. He inherited a terrible Nebraska program. Like, let's be honest here, right? It was not a good Nebraska situation he walked into. Coach Matt Rule, 2-19 against top 25 opponents, 9% winning percentage. What do you think?
I think Matt Rule has just got to get better defensive personnel. If you look at his history, it's kind of like what Jake was saying. Dude has never really had too much of a bad offense. Even in his first seasons, it seems like his offenses do well.
Mm-hmm.
I think he just got to get better defensive coaches, better defensive personnel around him. The guy can recruit. The guy's a great coach, obviously. Coach at the NFL level, head coach there. Coach at the college level. I think sometimes these coaches, like a Matt Rule, like a Lincoln Riley, these guys are so good at their side of the ball that they tend to unconsciously wane on the other side of the ball. If you look at their history, the stats support it. The offense is always ranked pretty decent, but the defense is not. We all know he's a great offensive coach. And I think it's just a matter of time, man.
Mm-hmm.
I think if Nebraska just get back to being Nebraska, especially now with NIL, just a matter of time. I think Matt Rule will be just fine.
Mm-hmm.
He's a smart coach. You don't get a head coaching gig at the next level if you don't know what the hell you're doing. I think he'll be just fine. I think Nebraska has to really, really, really get back to being Nebraska as far as promotion. You got to get back to being that Nebraska that'll do anything to win. You got to go out and get these kids, even if it means coming off the wallet a little bit. I think if they have a good season, the floodgates are open. Their fans hadn't ever went anywhere, right? The fans are still packing that stadium out. Lincoln, it's still, record sellouts every Saturday there, no matter how good or bad the team does. So the fans are still interested in Nebraska football. They live and die for that football in that region. So I think it's just a matter of getting on the field, making it happen, man. The resources are there. Defensive personnel seems to be there. Defensive coaches seems to be there. I think Nebraska will be probably more relevant under Matt Rule than they have been in recent memory.
I certainly hope so. And we have someone pointing out, let me give them their due, Shane, saying Rule had a big win in recruiting, getting Raiola. And it's not just that. They also were able to get a tight end, that same class, who chose them. Yeah. There was a battle between Oklahoma for a bit, though I think Oklahoma, I don't know if they ended up in the top 3, but at one point they were really after this kid. Colorado was really after him. He ended up going to Nebraska. Coleman? Is it Malachi Coleman? Sounds right off the top of my head. I'm going to do a little bit of Googling as I'm talking. So if you're wondering why it is Malachi Coleman. Wow.
Yeah. Okay. Nice job, Ty.
Yeah.
Boom. Sure. Yes, sir.
Awesome. Remembering recruiting battles from years ago. But he's super, super gifted. They were in it for Dawson Merritt, made it real difficult for Alabama to get that win. And I think that says something, right?
Oh, yeah.
There's two ways to look at this. Yes, Alabama doesn't have as much of a linear path to playing time as, say, a Nebraska. But we also have to remember, like Nick Saban said years ago, whenever teams try and negative recruit Alabama off that, it's almost insulting to the players. It's not almost, it is insulting. It's almost saying you're not good enough to play over there. So come here.
Yep.
And Saban was like, that pitch is so self-defeating for those that like take a step back and are like, wait a second, what are you really saying? But it is also true that Alabama has incredible depth. You're not going to name 3 college football teams that you look at and top to bottom, not necessarily in certain position groups, but top to bottom that doesn't have the talent accumulated that Alabama does. But Nebraska, that's not the only reason they were in this battle. At the point where it's between Nebraska and Alabama, playing time obviously isn't the first thing on Dawson's mind. Because if it was, it probably would have been a Kansas State, Nebraska. And I give you Kansas State because, gentlemen, I think we can all agree, well-coached team, super disciplined football, and they're poised to take over the Big 12 right now, right? There's a handful of teams that could really take over that conference. I got a lot of respect for Kansas State. Whenever Alabama played them in that bowl game, I picked Alabama to win, but if anybody watched, you'll remember I said, hey, this is a good football team in the sense of they're disciplined. They're not going to beat themselves at the same rate some other teams do. They're not going to become intimidated by the Alabama brand, right? If they lose, it's because Alabama is going to be that good, but they're not going to be a team to just fold. That's not what Kansas State does. That's why I have a lot of respect for them. 5 Adam saying Utah will take over the Big 12. I gave Utah as my answer whenever we talked about the Big 12, 5 Adam, but I do think it's important to give Kansas State their flowers. They're going to make this interesting for Utah because they play a style of football that Utah does as well, right? Which is one of the reasons why Kansas State was always right there. I mean, they weren't Oklahoma. They weren't, Texas in terms of brand capacity, but solid football team, man. Well coached, super disciplined. Got a lot of respect for what they do over there. It is going to be interesting to see Klein now, though, at A&M as the offensive coordinator. Listen, gentlemen, I got more faith in what Mike Elko has assembled than I ever did in what Jimbo assembled. But that's a conversation.
Mike Elko's a good coach too, man. He's a good coach. Trust me.
Real
Elko's
good.
A very good coach. Yeah.
Well, Coach, once again, an opportunity for us to do this. Did you see the other day whenever we were talking about what he inherited compared to what he did in year 1?
You talking about Elko?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
definitely.
I'm just going to quickly give you all the numbers, then we're going to go to number 3. Duke, the year before he got there, Elko that is, they were 3-9. They averaged 22.8 points per game, good for the 102nd offense in the nation out of 130. They allowed, geez Louise, they allowed 39.8 points per game. God bless America. That's terrible for 127th out of 130. First year of Mike Elko. They go 9-4. But the devil is in the details, right? Like Coach Sean says, the truth is in the details. Points per game, 32nd, or 32.8 points per game. Good for 32nd out of 131. Opponent points per game, 22.1. Good for 31st out of 131. That is an astronomical jump on both sides of the ball. We move forward to 2023. Now, important to note that the offense took a step back, but Riley Leonard got hurt. So we understand that, right? Like you had a quarterback that was a genuine threat. He gets hurt. You're not in a position to have 3 or 4 quarterbacks that you can turn to be like, okay, that's the guy. That I understand that. They still went 26.9 points per game, 68th in the nation with their starting guy going down. But let's take a look at this defense where they only allowed 19 points per game, good for 17th out of 133. It's crazy what he did, Coach, to your point. At Duke, I got a lot of faith in what Mike Elko can do at A&M. I would say this is coming from someone who made a few videos saying that I don't get Jimbo, because I don't. I never got the hire. I never got the extension. You paid him, Nick Saban, money for results that were less than the guy you just got rid of before him. Kevin Sumlin had more ranked wins, more road ranked wins, and less group of 5 losses. And you paid Jimbo for results less than what you fired Sumlin for. That's a conversation for a different day. Greg Schiano comes in, number 3. 4-31 with an 11.4% win percentage versus top 25 teams. Let's reverse the order. Coach Sean, what are you thinking here? Because this is a guy who's doing some good stuff out there at Rutgers right now. What's your thoughts at him coming in third in terms of, the bottom, but still he's on the list?
I think Greg Schiano is a good coach, man. I just think a lot of his beef that pause on that. I think a lot of his pause on that.
Whoa.
A lot of his wins or losses, whatever the hell you want to call it, come from Rutgers. I just think that he must have an affinity for Rutgers because no disrespect to Rutgers, but I don't think Rutgers will ever be a perennial champion in football. I think that he's building that program about as well as you can in Rutgers, New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know a lot about Rutgers outside of basketball. And I just think that program, you're going to lose a lot of games. I think it's inevitable. You're just going to lose a lot of games at Rutgers, no matter how good the coach is, no matter how many players you bring there. I just don't see Rutgers being a place where you can sustain wins in this climate of college football. I think Greg Schiano is better than a lot of coaches who got better jobs than him. I really do. Shout out to Coach Smoot. What up, Smoot? What's up with
What up,
your boy,
Smoot?
boy? What's going on with you, man? How you feeling, boy? I think Greg Schiano is better than a lot of coaches, man, who have better jobs than him. I think if you put Greg Schiano in a lot of these other coaching positions, I think he'd be just as successful. I like Greg Schiano. I like some things he done on the defensive side of the ball when he was in the league. I like some things he done at Ohio State. I like some things. Greg Schiano's a hell of a coach, man. It's just the school, man.
No.
No disrespect to Rutgers fans, bro. But, bro, outside of the round ball, I don't know what the hell you're doing at Rutgers. A lot of people don't even know you got a football team. I mean, it just is what it is with Rutgers. You just have to come to the conclusion that at some teams, some universities, other sports are more important than other sports. No matter what conference you're in, you know, um, Rutgers seems to make their bones with their basketball teams. I don't know how successful Greg Schiano can. If he wins 8 games there, is that a successful season at Rutgers? I'd say so.
Yeah.
8 games, Rutgers.
Yeah.
I'll take it. Put Greg Schiano at let's just say put Greg Schiano at Mississippi State or Ole Miss. I think Greg Schiano would cause a lot of people some headaches, man. Dude is a good coach. He understands everything it is to understand about football, especially on the defensive side. I just think that, man, you're only going to be so successful at certain schools. So it doesn't shock me at the time. It doesn't shock me where his position is on that list.
Jake, talk to me. Shout out to Jay the Goat. Shout out to Trina.
What's going on?
Smook. Shout out Shane. I don't want to get on that plane, Adam. Go ahead, Jake.
That's funny. I love it. But no, you're right, Coach. He is a good coach. But again, at Rutgers, I just don't see where you're going to be able to recruit enough talent to beat some of these like top 25 teams. Yeah, you might beat some guys in like 25, 24, 23, 22 through maybe 18, if maybe. A lot of people have been high on Rutgers since he came back. They've been waiting for like Rutgers to take a turn for the better. I just don't know if it's the right spot for him. I don't, as a coach and you look at his history, right, and like who he is. I mean, gosh, at one point he's coaching Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So again, like this might not be the spot for him. And maybe again, like a lot of these places, though, as we go through and we'll watch who becomes like a true powerhouse between the Big Ten, SEC, which we kind of know who our powerhouses is, but it's going to be interesting to watch now with the addition of Texas and Oklahoma. And then you go into the Big 12, right? Even who maybe steps up from there. It's going to be interesting to watch the coaches at the programs who maybe don't have as much success. What are they going to do as coaches rotate and fill? Like, are they going to bounce, and then are we going to finally see their success? Greg's one of those guys, as you said. Maybe if he does bounce and get to somewhere that's a little more stable, a little more of like a football school, he'll be able to achieve that kind of win percentage that he needs to. I just don't see it, like you said, Coach. I don't see it at Rutgers. Just doesn't have that feel.
What was the last successful coach to go to consecutive bowl games at Rutgers?
I couldn't give you that one. I couldn't.
Yeah.
Isn't he from the East Coast? Isn't he from that area, the New York, New Jersey area?
I believe he is, but I can double check on that to be sure.
Okay.
He is from New Jersey. Yeah, so I mean, he's
So
like a Loxley. He's the
I get
local
it.
guy.
I get it. Because when you look at the guy, when he's been a coordinator everywhere he's went, his side of the ball did well. They did well. I mean, so
well,
you know,
it's funny you said that. Rutgers looks like it was 2021, and that was with Greg Schiano. So
okay.
Either way, he's the common denominator, huh?
Yeah, he is. Like that's the reason. So he just needs to. I think it's just time for him to find somewhere else. I don't know why you want to keep going back to that.
You know, it could be one of those things, man, where he's just like, hey, I'm in my home environment and I can make an impact in my community that I've known. But I do agree. I definitely do agree, Jake. I'd love to see him. Coach, you gave a team that, while I'm excited to see what their new head coach can do, he's a brand new head coach. I don't mean new to them, like you're getting a used car that's now new to you. I mean like this bad boy just came off the factory line in Jeff Lebby. But Mississippi State with Greg Schiano, that could have been interesting.
Yeah.
That could have been super interesting. Interested to see what Lebby does. Lebby is super tuned in with offense, and I just don't think that they have the firepower right now, year one, for Lebby to make the moves that he might be able to here in the future. But I do like Lebby, right? I definitely do like Lebby. We move forward.
Too.
And guys, this is where we're going to start getting into some coaches where now the takes are going to heat up.
Yeah.
So if you're in here, go ahead and get your some popcorn. Go ahead and maybe make you a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Maybe a little burrito. Antoine, shout out to you. Sven said, stop it. I apologize, Sven. Listen, I think y'all will be good long-term. I think you'll be good long-term. Lebby is an great offensive mind. But it is one of those things where your program, this is something that I think is super underrated when we talk about coaching change. Is a defensive head coach, and we don't want to see him give me Lebby all day. I hear you, right? I hear the Lebby faith. But here's what I will say, Sven. One of the things that we need to always remember is that you're changing entire philosophies and cultures. You went from Leach offense to your guy after that, who was defense, and now you're back offense. That's going to take a year or two to really because there's been so much just flip. Yeah, it is something interesting, but I do think Schiano would be interesting over there. I'm probably saying his name really weird, and this is the East Coast and me coming out. I don't know if y'all have noticed, but I don't know if I have a Texas accent. You never know what kind of accent you have.
I don't hear one, but I'm also half deaf. So,
well, there you go. I'll take it. But I don't know if y'all have noticed, for whatever reason, born and raised in Texas, but every so often I'll have a New York accent come out, and it's on certain words. One, right? I say one.
Oh, yeah. Look at that. Yeah.
Dad's from New York, right? What can I say? I spent a lot of summers there. Anyways.
I like it. That's cool, man.
Steven, thank you for being in here. Saying came in late. Yeah, no worries. Better late than never. We also have Antoine. Yeah, definitely hope you feel better. We have Poetic in here trying to get me to take a road trip. We have Adam trying to get Jake and I to fly. Cam in here. Cam, thank you for being in here as always, man. Happy to see you in here. Hopefully you're doing well, my man. Hopefully you're doing well. And in one of the scenes, Jake and Ty stop at a hotel in Norman, and Jake be, what are we doing?
Come on.
With scene one, Jake gets in the car and starts playing Metallica on the radio. Ty goes nuts and switches to Frank Sinatra.
Ty likes Metallica.
I do enjoy some Metallica, but I also do enjoy some Sinatra. Let's hey.
Don't we all?
That's some smooth stuff. Like I said, guys, let's strap in. We got some
Let's
names.
Let's go.
At 7 wins to 19 losses with a 26.9% winning percentage against top 25 teams, we have Steve Sarkisian. And Jake, I'm interested in hearing your take on this, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
Coach Sean and I talked about this last week,
Mm-hmm.
where when I look at Sark, for me personally, I almost have to look at Sark like it's two different books as opposed to two different chapters of the same book.
Yeah, okay.
Does that make sense?
That was a good way of putting it. I like it.
Because he went through what he went through. He was mentored by Saban, and now I feel like we have a different Sark. So 7-19 against top 25 opponents. A lot of that, I think 3 or 4 of those wins came this year.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yep.
So granted, 1 loss came this year as well. So before, let's say it was 3, he was 4-18 against top 25 opponents. Really did well this year. Thoughts on Steve Sarkisian?
Yeah, I think it's a good way of putting it, the book thing, right? Like, I think that's a really good, because you have like maybe book 1 and then book 2, right? And book 2, you could even say it's book 3 for him, because book 2 is like, it's the new start at Alabama. What's up, Boomer? How you doing, man? So I think it's interesting. So you look at Steve and you look at what he's done at Texas. He's helped Texas get to where they're at now. He's done a very good job. One of the things I've asked though is like, what's Texas identity going to be? Okay, like, what is Texas football? What is their identity going to be going forward under Sarkisian? Because it feels like it changes a lot, right? And granted, I'm not saying identity from a scheme or all these things, because we kind of have an idea. You're going to change it in a little bit here and there based on what talent you have and what you're recruiting. But as a team, like, what's their mentality? And that's what I want to see with Texas and with Steve. I think for him to reach that next level, they have to really figure out what their identity is. I think that's where I go back, and I've talked about this over on an Oklahoma kind of podcast. But I was saying Brent Venables did a good job of figuring out, this is the identity I want. I want toughness. I want it to come from the soul. I want grit. I want to have a team that's toe to toe, punch you in the mouth, and we're going to deck it out back and forth until somebody hits the ground, right? And we're going to stand in that fight no matter who it's against. You can feel that. You can feel that that's what he's established, and that is what's continuing to be established. I think DeBoer has a unique mindset, right? Like DeBoer, you feel that identity from him is, I want poise. I want a bond, right? A very, very tight bond with the team from a standpoint that they lead each other in the right direction, that they fight as one, okay? And that we continue to keep the standard. All right. So the next part of that is with Steve. He's one of those dudes that he has the right talent. It feels like he's grabbing it, getting it in the right places. Now, how do you take that next level? And I really feel like it comes down to what is your identity as a team, and what do you continue that identity going forward? That persona. I talked to Coach Roybal. For those who don't know, he's like a legendary coach that's come out of Texas high school football. He's over with Jason at Hall of Fame college football with Jason and the coach. Coach Roybal coached for a long time. One of the things we had talked about was with these teams, and when you're taking over a team that needs to change and get things back, they're going to take on, as long as you're leading correctly, as long as you are going about your business and you have those goals and you can clearly identify your core values and what stabilizes your program. I think DeBoer calls them maxims, but from there you identify those, and as a coach, you have to hold yourself to those standards, continue to go and go and go. Right now, I think the beautiful thing is with this is Coach Roybal says they're going to take on your personality. Steve has come, as we talk about, full circle through the difficulties that he got past. So who is he now? And how does the team take on who he is as a personality, as a mindset? And that's something I'm still waiting to see what Texas does, right? We thought maybe we saw it last season a little bit, that they will push through the toughness or the tough times, like playing like Alabama, in winning. But then they got into the opportunity moments and they did not succeed once again, same as the season before. So where is that breakage in the identity? Where's that breakage in that team aspect? So that's the biggest thing from I guess Sarkisian that I'm waiting to see, right? And I think once we see that, if he identifies it, whether he does or not, then you'll start to see Texas be that team that we're really speaking about as far as a competitor. For anybody saying right now Texas is going to come in and win the SEC, like, no, that's not happening.
I think my big question with Texas is what do you do, one, on the defensive backfield? Because that was an area that was a little bit squirrely yesterday or last year. And then how do you kind of replicate that success on your defensive front? Because this was a defensive backfield that got into some trouble. Now, granted, they'll have better pass rushers. Trey Moore is gonna be a beast, man. Like, that was a huge win, and I really like the kid they got out of Duncanville, Colin Simmons, former 5-star. They'll have better pass rushing this year than they did last year, so that should help. But is your interior going to be as good? I think it will be good, but is it going to be that as good as it was last year? Remains to be seen. And offensively, listen, their offensive line could be up for a Joe Moore award, right? It's that good. It is a real good offensive line. I'm not worried about them losing the running back they lost to the draft. Why? They got a lot of good running backs.
Yeah.
Blue is still there. CJ Baxter is still there. They've got the guys there. And then wide receiver, it's Sark, right? But I am interested. I know Texas will be good. How good's the question? Coach Sean, this is where I pass it to you. Steve Sarkisian, once again, 7-19, 26.9% winning percentage against top 25 teams. What's your thoughts?
I like to speak on book 2 of Sark. I think book 1, it's in the books. We all understand what the guy went through. What's up, Coach Smoot? How you doing, man? Good to see you, broski. For sure. I see you doing your thing over there, man.
Appreciate you as always, man.
Always busy, I see. You know what I mean? Do your thing, bro. Do your thing, bro. For sure. I think Southern Red makes a great point. She says, I think their weak schedule works against Texas more than anything. So I think in this conference, team Texas and Oklahoma, who are great teams, will find out that in particular thing will get it's extenuated more than in the Big 12. In the Big 12, it's like a lot of teams are sort of here. Everybody could beat anybody on any given day. A lot of the teams are very similar, sort of beat up on each other. The SEC, man, listen, I'll tell anybody, and this is straight from players' mouths. To me, what make this conference different is the teams that you know for sure we're going to win this game. You're going to count that as a W, right? These are the teams that if you come out BSing, they'll beat you. Like, you'll lose that game. You will go home with an L if you go into Mississippi State, drag it. If you're not on your game, going to Kentucky BSing, you're going to lose that game, man. You're going to lose going to Tennessee, even with their record being bad, we'll just say you will lose that game, guaranteed. So the thing about it is, I think Sark, I give Sark his flowers, man. I mean, the dude is Texas for so long talks about how they were back, but they were back. Their fans just get on my damn nerves with I'm back, I'm back, I'm back. Shut up. You know what I mean? They weren't back. They were getting their asses whipped every time you look around when they play great or like-minded competition, right? So to see these guys make the college football playoff is a big deal. I'll give them their flowers on that, man. Sark has created a very good I guess I should say foundation of support with him now, because I can remember his first year or two, they was kind of like, I mean, I even heard whispers in them wanting to fire the dude. So look now, the expectations are through the roof. These guys made the college football playoff. Last year had just as good a season as we did, lost in the same round as we did, beat us at home, which doesn't happen, in Alabama, Nick Saban history. Look at our record under Nick Saban at home. So I give they flowers, man. But you guys make a great point about their secondary. I do see their secondary being an Achilles heel unless they've made great strides, which maybe they have. Who knows? Um, they got a lot of players back, man. They got a lot of players back as far as guys that can create value for themselves in the defensive backfield. And it's going to be interesting to see if these guys have gotten any better on that side of the ball in that position. The game against Georgia is going to be huge for them. If they mess around and beat Georgia, which I don't think they're going to win that game, but if they mess around and beat Georgia, that'll put the entire conference on notice. It will, even if they don't go out and finish the job. To beat Georgia in the regular season, a team that has not lost a regular season game in probably 3.5 seasons, whatever it is. I think these guys have won 36 straight in the regular season. So I think they got a huge opportunity. I think Sark is right where he need to be. We understand his first couple of years was sort of, as all coaches are when they take a new job, that had sort of false hope, like Texas did. They were always better. They always thought they were better than they was. We all know that if you want the truth. But to see Texas come out and do the things they're doing right now, I mean, listen, I may be still shell shocked from losing to them. I don't like losing to teams. I don't like dissing teams who put belt to my ass. I don't enjoy doing that. So I got to give their flowers until further notice, if you know what I'm saying, because we understand their deficiencies, where they were deficient at last year, where Washington took advantage of them at last year. But I think Steve has got the personnel there and the coaches there. He retained his entire staff practically, right? That's going to be huge for them. They got great depth at quarterback. That's going to be huge for them. Their running back room is just as deep as anybody's. Their offensive line is going to be one of the best in the country. The defensive front, while not like last year, may just be good enough to create some problems for some teams on that weak schedule that they have. They don't have Oklahoma's schedule. So that could work against them, like Red was saying. But then again, they could cause some noise with that schedule. So we just have to wait and see, man. But I give Sark his flowers. I think he's rated right where he need to be. And I think the jury's still out, and this season will tell the story.
JW, I think we're speaking comparatively, right? When you take a look at, like, let's say Oklahoma's schedule, that's one of the toughest schedules in the nation. When we take a look at Florida's
in
schedule,
comparison to Oklahoma. Facts.
Yeah. We're not saying, okay, in comparison, it's not like it's not the easiest schedule I've ever seen. Don't get me wrong. Right. But in terms of like the luck of the draw, you have Mississippi State when they're in a coaching turnover, Vandy. You do have Florida, or you do have Georgia. That's a tough game. Michigan's going to be very interesting. But you have Colorado State, Michigan, UTSA, Louisiana Monroe, Mississippi State already right there. And I think y'all will beat Michigan. You should be undefeated. You get your rivalry game in Oklahoma. That's a tough one. No doubt about it. You get Georgia. That's a tough one. Then you have Vanderbilt, Florida, who's really down. Arkansas, who's really down. Kentucky's a tough one. And Texas A&M, I give you that. I think Texas A&M is really building under this new coaching staff. I really like the Elko hire. But I think comparatively, when you look at some of the other SEC schedules, it's not as difficult as some of the other SEC schedules. And this is something we've even talked about, even on the SEC Connect, right? I've talked about this with Nino. I've talked about this with Steven over at Fanatics Perspective. And yeah, it is what it is. But I think that Texas is a really interesting team this year, because I think they're going to be good. I think they're going to be good. How good, to me, depends on what that defensive front looks like and how that secondary comes together.
Well, let me say this, Ty, before you move on.
Go ahead.
To the Texas fans, I understand. I'm learning about you guys. I've always known about Oklahoma, Texas, as everybody has. But I'm learning about the hate between the two universities. Now that they're in the league, I'm learning the history of certain things, and I'm learning what about the horns down. I will say really quickly that if you guys are upset that people throw the horns down, you're going to be very upset in this conference. You're going to be exceptionally upset. In this conference, because people in this conference don't give a damn about how you feel. And that's any of us, not just Texas. That's to Bama, they don't care. Wait till you get the chance to go down to Baton Rouge. They don't give a damn.
When they start playing neck.
Yes. So
I would say, Coach,
Just get ready for it.
I will say I haven't met a Texas fan that cares about the horns down.
Yeah.
That's one thing where I absolutely defend the Texas side, because it's like it seems like people from the outside are like,
Mhm.
oh, haha, you care, but the Texas people are like, no, we don't. And
Yeah.
JW, 100% Georgia's schedule was weak last year. We talk about that all the time. They were in the SEC least. We talk about that all the time, that Georgia never really had to play the tough schedules that some of the other SEC teams played. Now, that doesn't mean that Georgia wasn't a fantastic team. They
Mhm.
were. But yeah, 1,000%. We talked about
Mhm.
that quite frequently. That's not why they got their butt kicked by Alabama. Georgia was a great team. Two things can be true. And I think it could be true for Texas, that you don't have as tough as a schedule comparatively, and you can be a solid team. Two things,
Yeah.
two truths can exist simultaneously, right? But
Facts.
yeah, if you don't think that wasn't talked about, then I would argue you weren't listening to the conversations as a whole, because we talked about that frequently, that Georgia did not have to play the tough schedule. I mean, you look at the difference between the SEC West and the SEC East, right? Why don't they have a tough schedule? Oh, well, that's a longer conversation that we'll get into at a different time, Boomer. But if you look at the difference between the East and the West, and once again, this isn't Georgia's fault, right? Georgia, they only can play who is in front of them. They handled business. They won back-to-back national championships. I don't fault Georgia for anything. They're an incredible team. But the East right now is down. Like, Tennessee is trying to get back to where they were. Florida's real down. And you have Kentucky, who's a tough out. Kentucky doesn't get the respect they deserve. And don't get me wrong, it's a team, JW, that I absolutely think Texas will beat. But it's one of those games where it's like, well, yeah, that's exactly what I just said. You play the schedule that you have. But once again, JW, multiple things. Like, this is one of the things I know from debate, from law, and from all these things. Nuance is incredibly important, and multiple things can be true simultaneously, right? Like, and that's where Georgia in the SEC East didn't have to play LSU, Ole Miss, like Bama, A&M every single year, right? That was just that the SEC West was the much more difficult side of the SEC. Now, one thing I love that the SEC did is getting rid of East and West with the addition of Texas and OU. And that's going to make the conference much more competitive as a whole, in terms of now you don't have to just be on one side that might be down, right? It's much different playing South Carolina, Vandy, down Florida, as compared to playing LSU, Ole Miss right now, A&M, right? Like those are two very Alabama. Those are two very different things. But we move forward. This is where, because like we said, whenever we look at Steve Sarkisian, we all kind of agree. Instead of looking at it as two chapters of the same book, it's book one and book two. Book two, Steve Sarkisian really doing some interesting things. Really like the direction he has Texas moving. Now we get into a coach that I have been pretty critical of. At 8 wins to 17 losses with a 32% win percentage, Mario Cristobal.
Mm-hmm.
Now, gentlemen, I have said that I understand everybody talks about the pressure that's on Billy Napier. I think Mario Cristobal is under just as much pressure as Billy Napier. And I get it. Napier has the more difficult schedule. But if you're Mario Cristobal and you go out there and drop the ball with that easy schedule, you're done. Like, you could be in trouble. Jake, Coach Shaw, we'll go reverse order. We'll just keep ping-ponging back and forth. Keep everybody on their toes. What do you think about Mario Cristobal?
I'm trying to be non-biased and not confuse Mario Cristobal with the university that he coaches for. Just keeping it real.
Yep.
The truth is in the details, man. And the truth says that this guy is a hell of a recruiter. That's about it. I look at Oregon. They're doing actually better. I mean, in a few seasons than they did when you were there. I look at Miami and I look at some of the games these guys have lost and how they've lost. I look at some of the decisions that were made and with timeouts and all types of things. And I think Mario's a great coach. Well, let me not say great. I think he's a good coach, man. I do. I think he's great with the offensive line. I think he's a hell of a recruiter, one of the best recruiters.
Mm-hmm.
But I think again, the university comes into play with coaches like Mario. He had success at Oregon,
Mm-hmm.
right? For what it's worth, you know. Um, when you look at Mario Cristobal and the background as a whole, you have to take into account of the administration that he works for. He's coaching at a university with plenty of money, private institution. He's coaching at a university that doesn't have a football stadium. They play football in a soccer stadium. And they use the Miami Dolphins and are paying them umpteen amounts of money a year to use a stadium that's 45 minutes away from their home campus. So does kids care about that? Some kids will tell you, no, I don't care about that. I don't think kids care about that until they do, if you understand what I'm saying. I don't in particularly like the fact that the kids came to Texas A&M 2 years ago, played at Texas A&M, and were in awe of the crowd at Texas A&M. I think that's when Tyler Van Dyke was a starter, and they were talking about it like, "Wow, man, it's crazy to play." I don't want my kids starstruck by that. Shout out to Ebony. What's up, Ebony? Shout out to the young baller himself named Noah. Shout out to the
Mm-hmm.
Carters, Williams. Um, so I think Mario at this point is rated right where he need to be. Um, I could dare say Mario Cristobal has the Ryan Day effect. Who's done less with more? This guy got talent. He had a top 5, top 10 recruiting class last year, the year before that. Now this year, they've got great talent. So the talent is in Miami. Let's not act like it's not. They got another transfer quarterback where everybody's saying it's going to be pretty good. I would argue that you've done less with more. You've got talent in Miami and you've done nothing with it. You've lost to people that you shouldn't have lost to. Um, you know, I can't call Mario Cristobal a bad coach. I think he's a good coach, man. But
Sure.
I think he's definitely, I think he's getting into the teeth of whether he's going to be there for the future or not with this season. I think Ty and Jake both spoke on it. I think he's getting into the crux of whether he's going to be the coach there for the future or not with this season. I think this season, I don't think it's a make or break season, but I do think that ass will get pretty hot if you come out and lose a couple more games this year. So I think he's rated right where he needs to be. Great recruiter. So far, mediocre coach.
Yeah. That you kind of hit the nail on the head. You look at everywhere he's been as a head coach, it like he kind of falls into. Yeah, Oregon was a little different
Yeah.
because with Oregon there, right, you kind of finish. You have like a COVID season, and then after COVID season, you roll in, and you had a decent year at Oregon, and Oregon's not. Again, I've said this before. Oregon's recruiting wise, like you got a lot of resources there for Oregon. That helps you in recruiting. I mean, I've been there a few times. In high school, I used to drive there every weekend for passing camp and whatnot. So, and 7-on-7s. So Oregon has a lot of cool things. Don't get me wrong. And with a recruiter like that, you can bring in the talent you need. I think it also helped that he kind of retained some pieces in place that were already at Oregon that helped with that success. Miami, you would think you would have had success quicker, right? What are we going into? Is this year 4 for him? Correct? Is it year 4?
I believe so.
So I think so. So with that being said, you're kind of at this point right now where you're going, all right, that we need to see results. Not to mention the quarterback you do have in like Cam Ward's the real deal. He is good. Now,
No, he got there 2022. I apologize.
he did. So it's year 3 for him.
Mm-hmm.
Got you. So Cam Ward is really, really good. I think, again, year 3 and 4 are those years where you start to really see the results of the head coach implementing his ideas, his style. It's very rare you to get to go and build on something that's already extremely successful, like again at Alabama. But with Miami, and Cristobal, you would think that he would do whatever it takes to get this working instead of just the recruiting factor, just because he has so much pride. I mean, he was a national champion player there. So it just it hasn't worked. And so now you're going, okay, this is going to be that year. Like, you have all these pieces in place. You can't make an excuse for QB. You can't make an excuse for anything at all. You have everything in place, and we're going to see it. Week 1, they play Florida. That is going to be the battle. That is going to be a game to watch. It truly is. It's going to be fun to watch. If you saw Billy Napier in the SEC media days, they know those players. They all know what they're going up against. They're preparing themselves mentally. I think, Florida's coming to play. Will Miami be the team that they're expected to be with the talent they have? We're yet to be seen, right? So yeah, I'm excited to see it, but I do think this is a big year for Cristobal. So
yeah, listen, this is definitely a name I'll be watching this year. I've talked about it at length, and in order for us to move forward, ironically, gentlemen, we stay in the state of Florida. At 8-16 with a 33.3% winning percentage against top 25 teams, we have Mike Norvell. Now, this is kind of why, where it's like, I'm not saying I don't respect Norvell as a coach, what he's done with Florida State. He's utilized the transfer portal beautifully at Florida State. But whenever the job came open for Alabama, I have a very good friend who does great content for Pitt. Shout out JJ Kitchens.
Yep.
And he messaged me, and even Jason and I were messaging. And they were like, hey, it sounds like, obviously at this time it was things being floated around by the agents to try and get the coach's contract upgrades. But a lot of people were like, hey, seems like Norvell might be the guy. I was like Michael Scott in that scene of The Office where it was like, no, God, please, no. Right? When I heard it might have been Norvell, I was like, please, Lord, no. Please, no. No offense, Mike Norvell, you've done a great job. But that was one that did not excite me, right? Did not excite me in the slightest. Jake, talk to me about Mike Norvell.
Well, with Mike, it's interesting, right? Like I think Mike's a good coach. You see what he did at FSU, and it feels like he was really able to get things rolling quickly. We all saw that. That's what jumped off the page, right, with Norvell. I think in general, Norvell is one of those guys that it was funny listening to who would be the next head coach at Alabama, and people brought his name up, but the truth is that wasn't even being like considered, right?
Yeah,
we all know that.
Offered.
So yeah, not happening. But I mean, he's had stops all over the place, whether not necessarily as a head coach, but like Memphis, Arizona State, like you said, Pittsburgh, Tulsa, Central Arkansas. I mean, the guy he figures out how to take programs and do some really good things with them. Now that he's at Florida State, we've seen that happen. Granted, yeah, they're lost to Georgia, but there's so many factors that play into that, and they had a pretty good season. Yeah, that you put it on a few players. Okay. But they won. In the end of the day, they won, right? Like, they still won. I mean, they didn't play the same level of competition, but they won. So it's going to be interesting to see with Mike. I think at Florida State, that expectation now is that you do have to win those big games, like nonstop. That you can't not win those, right? For Mike continue to grow and be that guy that people are saying he is as a coach, and want to believe in, he has to win. And I think that's going to be a huge part of their recruiting this year too. That's going to be a big, big thing when they watch him this season, because there's a lot of kids who've been in their recruiting class isn't bad, but a lot of kids who considered Florida State. Ty Haywood's one of them, right? They considered Florida State, but at the same time, it just wasn't there for him. So this year will be a huge year for him going forward, and he's going to have to win the big ones with what he has. And it sounds like they have some things in place that they could be pretty good from what we've seen. But again, Norvell is he's a good coach. Now it's a matter of saying, okay, can you do it consistently season after season? Right.
100%. Coach Sean, thoughts?
I like to grade Norvell on what did you do before this season. You had a great season this past year. When you take that season away, it's been sort of minuscule. I mean, okay. I mean, it's nothing to. So, I mean, do I put him over Mario Cristobal? Do I put him under Mario Cristobal? I guess if you count this past season, yeah, okay. If you want to, it counts, obviously. But I agree with Jake 1,000%. I didn't want this guy as Alabama head coach. I agree with Ty on that one too. I think he's a good coach, man. Anytime you can go undefeated in the regular season, you pretty damn good. But I just formed my own bad opinion about this dude, the way he handled the bowl game and things like that. Like this guy was, I just don't like it, man, because even on Twitter, even on social media, I don't recall this guy in the public ever promoting his team to play in the bowl game. It was always, well, we done this in the regular season. Damn the fact we got to play Georgia. Nobody wants to do that. We went undefeated. That should be enough. Okay, cool. I get it. That's what you're hanging your hat on. Central Florida style. I get it. No problem. But to me, if you a dog coach like that, I can't picture Kirby Smart or Nick Saban or hell, even Brian Kelly. I can't picture these guys going undefeated, probably not being able to play for the national championship and not really making their team. I ain't gonna say making, not really promoting their team to play in the bowl game, especially if you're playing a team that everybody think is one of the better teams any damn way. I can't picture those coaches allowing their team to lay down like that. Let's just hang our hat on the regular season. We ain't got to worry about nothing else. We went undefeated. We'll have that in our back pocket to argue about. We don't never. I personally think they never wanted to play Georgia, never, because that quarterback was gone. Right? You got a built-in excuse. We went 12-0. That's good enough. We don't want. Everybody's seen you against Louisville. Everybody's seen you against a pedestrian Florida team. You didn't want to play Georgia. I don't care what nobody tell me. You didn't want to play Georgia. You did not, and you used that to your advantage. So, taking that into consideration, I like Mike Norvell. I think he's a good coach. I think they'll have a decent season. Again, I think he's ranked where he should be. But a coach is not just about going out on Saturdays, winning and losing. A coach is about building a culture. And what you just showed me last year, I didn't like that at all. I'll debate anybody that want to debate. Winning every game, unfortunately, is not enough. Right? 4 slots, 5 Power 5 conferences at that time. Somebody's eventually going to be left out. I'm shocked that it didn't happen before then. Right? Promote your team to play Georgia. You beat them, you send shockwaves across the world that Florida State is here. You beat Georgia, you open everybody's mouth. You physically slap everybody in the face like, what now? You didn't want that. You went undefeated. That was good enough for you. You pulled a Central Florida on me, right? And to Central Florida's credit, even they beat Auburn and hung that on their hat. So, case in point, I'll leave Mike Norvell where he's at. I think he's rated properly, and you could put him and Cristobal in the bag, shake it up, and pull out one. And if you want to say this past season is the deal breaker, cool. He's where he should be to me.
I'm going to tell you the thing that I really didn't like that Norvell did. So we were told, and I understand, any Florida State fan that watches this, I understand he was politicking, right? But I didn't like that he was telling everybody, oh, well, we can beat all these teams in the playoffs with our backup quarterback.
Facts.
Right? Tate Rodemaker. That was the kid's name, right? Or is that the third? Okay. So he was telling everybody, oh, yeah, we can beat all these playoff caliber teams with this quarterback. Well, then whenever the season is actually done, he has the kid transfer out. And he's looking for a different quarterback. So, even, and I understand it was politicking, but that's when I was like, okay, even you knew that this wasn't going to cut it, right? If not, you'd have rocked with them going into this year. But you told everybody that this quarterback was good enough to beat a Georgia, good enough to beat a Michigan, good enough to beat a Washington, a Texas.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as the year's over, you're looking for something else in the transfer portal. I didn't like that.
Yeah.
Right? I did not like that specifically, was the handling of the quarterback situation. That was the thing that rubbed me. It definitely was not a good look to me. Now, we're going to rapid fire these next few guys because we still have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 before we get to the number one. So we're going to rapid fire this. At the next one, we have 14 and 23 at a 37% win percentage. That's James Franklin. Coach Sean, I'll start with you. James Franklin.
Rated too high, point blank. Rated too damn high. What the hell have you done? Nothing at Penn State. You averages, I don't know what to me. Everybody keeps talking about you done this at Vanderbilt. Man, look, Penn State has been mediocre as hell since that dude got there. You've had great talent at Penn State. You've got your ass whipped by Ohio State countless times. Overrated as hell, period.
Oh, yeah.
Boom.
I love it. Jake, thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think it's funny because we keep bringing up like this culture, right? Like, because we want to see what Texas, who they're going to be about. We still feel like we're unsure, right? We want to see Florida State, what they're about, because Mike Norvell had a great season. Now he has to repeat that going forward, right? To gain back that maybe that respect that was lost with kind of the pout, right? And then you look at Penn State, who's now been established for a minute, right? And they've put up a fight, and we've seen some good things they have done during the season. But then at the same time, we sit there and we're like, okay, but you guys just cannot get. You literally are like kind of like Ole Miss. You just don't get over the hump.
Over the hump.
You know what I'm saying? Like, dang, dude. Like, why? How is it that you recruit pretty well? There's a lot of, really like pride in Penn State as far as like their fan base and as far as what James Franklin came in and had to kind of take over, right? Like he really had to reestablish, like get that feeling of love back to Penn State, especially with all like the scandal stuff. And I'll tell you, it seemed like he was on the right trajectory, but then it just went flatlined, right? And you're like, what's going on now? Like you guys are not, you're in the Big Ten. There's only a few teams you really need to be able to beat. How come you can't beat them? Like what are you not doing? What are you not changing? Right. And then we saw even on this off season, which was kind of interesting seeing some of the guys who transferred out, that's especially like wide receiver. Their wide receiver. That's what the most productive wide receiver who transferred out. That's another one that's going to be like, okay, what is going on there? Why are we in this now? You have this realignment, right? And you play these teams that some of them now that you don't typically see. We'll really get to see what Penn State's about, because no matter what you want to say, who you want to say, UCLA's making some noise with the coaches they've hired. Deshaun Foster's doing a good job for taking over a UCLA program that basically just was like shut out. Like people are just like quit on it. That they brought it back to life as far as recruiting wise. They've made some excitement, some noise over there. Deshaun Foster's doing a great job. USC coming in, right? Lincoln Riley. Okay, this is a year where we have a lot of answers to what USC's program looks like going forward. If Lincoln Riley does well or not. Again, whole new defensive staff. Washington with a whole new staff. They have hit the transfer portal hard, right, with Washington. And you have some guys there that I think from an offensive coordinator and a defensive coordinator who are going to make a splash in the Big Ten for anybody who doesn't realize like what they bring to the table. And then again, and then you got Oregon, and Oregon has primed. They are setting themselves up to make a big splash on a national level. I think Oregon is going to be that team to watch this year as far as what they're able to do in the Big Ten and what they've tried to do from a depth standpoint, because they really need to load up on the D line. I feel like they did that a little bit with the portal. So, you know what I mean? It's going to be interesting to see now that Penn State has to face some other opponents, not just maybe your set couple that you're used to playing against, if they can maintain or start to either grow again, or if they start to tank downwards. And then the question is James Franklin still that guy for you guys? Or have you flatlined and it's time to move forward? You know?
Yeah, 100%. Now, I'm going to go through the next few until we get to the top three, right? Because after James Franklin at 9 and 10 at 47.3% winning percentage, we have Josh Heupel. Listen, I think Heupel's got Tennessee trending in a good direction.
Mm-hmm.
If I was a Tennessee fan, I would be excited about the future with Heupel. Great offense. You got a great defensive front. I just think that they're recruiting decently well right now, pretty well. And he's a young guy, right? I think the future is bright for him. So I would be excited. At 34 and 34, now we're getting to the 50% and up. 50% dead on the nose. You got Brian Kelly.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think this one might shock some people because I think they thought he might be higher, but 34 and 34 at Brian Kelly. This seems about right to me. Brian Kelly, heck of a coach, but at the same time, I've always struggled with where exactly to put Brian Kelly on any of these. Like whenever we're going to the top coaches, maybe in the SEC, I really struggle on where to put him. At 7 and 5, at a 58.3% percentage, you have Dan Lanning. Once again, a lot like Josh Heupel. If you're an Oregon fan, I'd be rightly excited about Dan Lanning. You got a guy. Dan is one of those dudes where out of all the young coaches out there, Dan, man, I mean, he's generated so much excitement. Moving forward at 17 and 12 at a 58.6% winning percentage, you have Lincoln Riley. Now, this one's interesting because Lincoln is a coach that we know can get you to the playoffs, but can he get over that proverbial hump? That question is now harder to answer with them going to the Big Ten. So we'll see. Gentlemen, we're getting into the ones where we're going to start going back around the table. 39 and 24 at a 61.9%, we have Dabo Swinney. Dabo had college football in the palm of his hands. His refusal to adapt has really hurt. And finally, we get back to our round table at 18 and 8 at 69.2%. Coming in at number 3 on the list, Ryan Day. Coach Sean, I'll start with you on Ryan Day.
Another coach that has done less with more, but I can't hate on him too bad because he has took his team to the national championship. I think that's what's saving him at Ohio State, the fact that he took Ohio State to the national championship. If your goal at Ohio State is to win 10 games a year, 11 games a year, then that's your guy. That's your guy, right? Great dude, great coach, but has not won the amount of national championships that you would think Ohio State would have to win with the talent that they have on their roster. It's no excuse that you fans from Ohio State, Ebony, will talk about how your talent is like Bama's, like Georgia's, if not better, but your winning when it comes to the big games is not. Hell, lately you're getting belt put to ass by Michigan over the last couple of years. I think you played Bama in the national championship in the COVID year. People keep telling me how that year don't matter, but if I can recall well, before that game, all I heard about was how that year mattered. We're Ohio State. We won 6 games. That should be enough. Block O, all that, scarlet and gray, all that. Well, you played Bama and got belt put to your asses. Really in a bad way. 52-24, if I'm not mistaken. Matt Jones outplayed Justin Fields. Devontae Smith is still scoring touchdowns even now. I just seen it ran across my damn yard.
In the first half.
In the first half. So, I mean, I guess if Ryan Day's what you're looking for, if to have a good successful season, winning 10, 11 games, in a schedule where you really only have one game, if that's what you're looking for, hey, shout out to y'all, Bucknuts. I mean, Buckeyes, do that. But at the end of the day, Ryan Day has not won a national championship at Ohio State, and Ohio State has just as much talent as anybody in the country. Bottom line. And they have, to me, underperformed. If Bama is your standard, as Georgia is your standard, they have not held their end of the bargain up, man. That's a
Mhm.
fact. Go give Kyle Whittingham all that talent.
Oh
You know what
yeah.
I'm saying? Go give him all that talent,
Boy.
Whoa.
and we'll see what happens, right?
Mhm.
I watched Chris Peterson win. Go give Chris Peterson when he was coaching all that talent.
Yeah.
You talking about multiple national championships, man. So give Brent Venables in his first year all that talent.
Mm.
So give Sark all that talent in his first year. So Ryan Day is right where he need to be, I suppose, because he did take his team to the national championship game. And I'll end it with that. I think he's a great coach. I think the future's great, but it all depends on what your great is.
Jake, thoughts?
Yeah, this is an interesting one, right? Because with Ryan being number 3, all of it has to do with, you're right, he made it to a national championship, okay, and it's hard to do 100%. So we can we give respect to that. But Ryan, all of his wins come from the regular season, and then after that, nothing else happens. So, and you continuously recruit, like, Ohio State has that brand that they've had for forever. That is one of those teams that recruits really high. They have a ton of talent. They have depth. Um, they should consistently be in the playoffs. They should consistently be in a national championship game, right? Um, but at the same time, it just seems like they get to a point where they're almost satisfied with what they've done this season, and the rest doesn't matter, right? Like, it, in the weirdest way, the thought process, because it's not, I know Ryan's not sitting there thinking he's satisfied, right? He can't be sitting there saying, like, I'm satisfied with just winning as many games as we can in the regular season, and having a great record, and then never getting to the big game or even winning the big game, and 2019, he's been there since 2008. Well, I mean, he's been there prior to that, right? At one point, he was an associate head coach, and did some games just like Sean Moore under Harbaugh when Urban Meyer was suspended. So, and he won, and he did a good job. So I expect him to be up there, because we're talking about record from a standpoint of beating big teams. So yes, he these ranked teams, he will definitely be up there. But if we look at from a standpoint of saying, okay, after that though, where's your projection? Should you be in these games more often than you're not? Yeah, you should, especially with the amount of talent you have. So why is that not happening? Why are we consistently, you're seeing the same thing every single year, it feels like. I think this year, especially this year for Ryan Day, it is a huge telling year of like what Ohio State is going to be going forward if they keep him. If he doesn't make a national championship, shoot, like, you're at that point where it's saying, okay, look, man, we have rode this with you. We love what you do during the season, but man, you just are not meeting. Like, what's your standard? Ohio State, right? Alabama, everyone knows standards is a national championship. Like, you have to get to the national championship. But I'll tell you this, from a standpoint of where he's at now, and especially this season with the type of schedule they have, like, he has to, that has to happen this year. Right. And if he doesn't, then doesn't matter how many games you win in the regular season if you're not winning it all in the end, or at least getting to a point to win it all. Right. So I think that's a big deal. And he's done everything he needs to set himself up this year. I mean, Chip Kelly, he reunites with Chip Kelly. Yeah. That's going to be a big deal. If he cannot do it now with the talent that he has, there's going to be some serious questions asked. So it's going to be fun to watch. But I respect where Ryan's at, because he is a good coach and he's won the big games. It's just the biggest game is that national championship, where they should be more often than they are. So
100%. 100%. This is why I said, guys, and I've always said this, Ryan Day has a whole lot of pressure on him this year. If they lose to Michigan with it is a first-year head coach, but at the same time, he lost to Moore last season, right? Harbaugh wasn't there. But if you lose to Michigan again with this roster that's so talented, he might be on the hot seat, especially if you lose to Michigan and then get bounced out of the playoffs early. Or what if you lose to Michigan twice? Right? Like this, this is something that could be, something that bounces him out. This is what I've always said. If I just put Coach A, Coach B, Coach C, and put up win percentages, everybody would tell me, no, that coach, say it's Coach A, he's safe. Look at that win percentage. And you would be right. At a 69.2% win percentage against top 25 teams, you would be right saying, no, that guy's safe. But this is where I always say nuance matters. As Coach Sean says, the truth is in the details. And this is why we discuss these details. At number 2, in terms of the winningest coaches against top 25 teams active in college football, going 33-12. Incredible. 73.3% winning percentage. Kirby Smart. Listen, I'm going to go ahead, Coach.
I'm sorry. I think Kirby's, what can you say, man? I mean, to me, I'll make it quick. Kirby's a standard to me.
Yeah.
Kirby comes from Coach Saban, and not just that, Kirby hadn't lost a regular season game in 3 years. Kirby hadn't lost a regular season game damn near since Sark has been at Texas, just about. To win one national championship is very, very tough. Like Jake said, to win 2 back-to-back is virtually impossible. True enough, Bama has had his number. Bottom line, Kirby Smart is the standard right now. And I understand our coach's winning percentage is better, but those 2 natties, those 2 rings speak loudly to me. And we can say what we want. We can be, you can hate all you want, but at the bottom line is that guy to me is the epitome of college football as far as coaches go right now. Those 2 national championships in 3 years say it, man. If we're going to count our national championships, we got to let him count his, and that's just what it is.
Oh, 100%. And 5, Adam, I will push back against this. Rick was a good coach.
He was. I liked Mark Rick, man.
Yeah.
Rick recruited me. I liked Mark Rick a lot.
Kirby is an elite coach. And Coach Sean, to your point, Kalen DeBoer, spoiler, is number 1 on this list in terms of highest win percentage. I'll go ahead and let you know it's 12-2 against top 25 teams with an 85.7% win percentage. Kirby's the best coach in football because I have to give respect to back-to-back national championships, not dropping a regular season game. And yes, it's true. He was in the SEC East where they didn't have the week-to-week competition as the SEC West. But then you get to and if there's anybody in here saying like, oh, but you argued against that for these teams, where that conversation and argument ends to me is what happens when you get to the playoffs.
Yeah.
What happens when he gets to the playoffs? Oh, he wins? Okay, then you are who at that point, like you're just good. 2 things can be true, right? 5, Adam, you might be right. They were injured. And would it have been a different game? Sure. I'm not saying Alabama would have won, though I think they would have, but it would have been a different game. They won. At the end of the day, Alabama still had the opportunities to make the plays. They didn't make them. Georgia won. And then they backed that up with another national championship. They didn't lose for years. Yeah, Bama beat them, but listen, there's no way for me to argue against Kirby Smart. Jake, I give it to you because I have nothing but praise for Kirby Smart. He has taken a team that was good and elevated them to a different level. Sven saying Kirby was 1-5 against Saban. That's his only fails, but I don't call that a failure. That's the GOAT. And it's also a little bit, Jake, before I pass it to you, it's a little bit like Sark with Saban. Sark knew Saban's defense in and out. He knew how to attack Saban. Right. So whenever they played, that's why both games of Texas versus Bama were so close. Because Sark knew how to put Saban in uncomfortable positions. Just like that, Saban knew Kirby. He knew how to take advantage of a few things, right? So fascinating stuff, but I got to give Kirby his flowers. I have to. No way around it. Jake, talk to me.
Yeah, no, I think Kirby's interesting, right? Because you're looking at 45 games and he loses 12. So 45 games that he faces ranked opponents, top 25, and he loses 12 of them. That's a lot, because the argument that everyone will make then for Kalen DeBoer is he's played 14 games. So, you know, a little more. Kirby's played a little more than half versus ranked opponents. Granted, we can then look back and say, okay, where were they coaching at? What type of talent did they have? So and so. You know, DeBoer did that basically really Fresno State, right? And Washington. So that's where those wins come from, which you have to say, okay, that's impressive, because you're doing it with teams that were not, they didn't even have anything remotely close to that prior to you getting there. They were hurting. Fresno State really bad. I think they were like 111, and then Washington was 4-8 before he gets there. So quick turnarounds under him, very impressive. So then you look at what he's coming into, and we're really going to see how DeBoer's system works when he gets all that talent, but also continuously faces the top talent just about every week in the SEC. At least you should see some ranked opponents almost hopefully every week. With Kirby, what's impressive is I have to say is he's done a good job of setting a standard, maintaining that standard, and continuing to excel with what he's had around him. I think Kirby, I told you I listened to a lot of what he has to say in his coaching and his kind of thought process, because I like it. He obviously pulls a lot from Nick Saban, but also I think that's just who Kirby is. If you go back and you listen to the guys who played with him, like there's a podcast, Coach I is on there with Shoddy, who played at Georgia. Coach I went to Georgia, but they are Between the Hedges, the Georgia podcast. A lot of those, the two of the other guys, and I forget who the names, they have different people on, but all of them really have played at Georgia. They played with Kirby, and they'll say like Kirby's mindset, even before Saban, it's not like he's learning stuff from Saban, but at the same time, Kirby's mindset, he was always just a hard-nosed, very smart guy, but also very tough, right? He had his own standard. He's done a good job, and he's going to continue to do a good job. Like Kirby's going to continue to excel. Georgia's not going anywhere, right? Georgia's going to compete every year. That is why I say that's the team, when you face them, you really get to measure like how good you are, right? As a team, like where you're at mentally, where you're at physically, talent-wise, how well your system works. You get to really measure that, because he was also able to take Saban's system, his defense, and kind of change it the way he wanted to change it. You bring up like Sark, really knowing Saban's defense. Here's the one thing that I think we saw this year, especially, is Saban's defense. He was making those changes already, changing over to like this nickel style of defense, very much like you'll see under Kane Womack, but not all the way. And there were still some intricacies that were left the same, and Sark took advantage of those. That's what happened in those games. Like, right, he was able to find ways to take advantage of them because he knew it so well. And that's going to be interesting to watch, like Kirby, because Kirby saw that and he was able to make those changes and transition sooner, right? Saban was doing that, and you saw. That's why I think this year was like such an impressive coaching job by Saban, because you saw him transition really, really quickly. And he said it. He said this was the year from a coaching standpoint that was probably one of the hardest ones, but also one of the better ones I've done, because you watch from the beginning of the season to end and how quickly he transitions, right? Kirby does a good job of that too, for the most part, right? And Kirby's very aware of it. I think Kirby, where he's at, is phenomenal. I think he'll just continue to be phenomenal. I will never sit here on a show and disrespect like Georgia for what they accomplish. Kirby does a great job. And when you have the success you have, because a lot of people bring up like all the driving incidents and everything, and they want to highlight like, oh, Georgia has a problem. Here's the deal. You know what? That stuff happens everywhere. You're just going to hear about it more at the schools who are in powerful positions or who are having a lot of success. Because people, as we know, and we go through life, if you're doing well, not everyone wants to see you succeed, sadly. Like people sit there and they say, well, we're going to highlight all your negatives because No one wants to talk about your positives because you already know how good you are. Well, that's not necessarily the case. And Kirby said it in the SEC media days. He dismissed that the safety on the team. Dismissed him. Okay. No longer on the team. So it's not like there's issues there that people are trying to maybe create on the outside. Those issues, they're going to happen. All you have to do is lock them in place and make sure going forward, what's the expectation from a player standpoint? And we're not going to put up with this. And Kirby's going that route. He is. He's going to make sure like some of these stuff is stomped out. You can't be perfect though. With Kalen DeBoer, I think when we jump over to him real quick, I will say this is Kalen is very, you listen to him talk, he's not a politician, right? When you listen to him talk, you can tell his speech is not, he doesn't follow when he talks, you watch him, he does not follow his speech. He knows the idea of what it's going to say, but he just speaks from the heart. He's just that sort of guy. Like legitimately just says it from the heart, shows genuinely and sincerely who he is, his character. He's humble, he has poise, but at the same time, he has discipline. And I will say this, from his mindset and what he expects of himself, those little losses or the losses that he does have, he takes them very, very hard. Not because of ego, because he feels like he let down the people around him. I will say, man, there's something to be said when you take on a adversity or a loss, right? And we all have them in life, whether it's football or life. And you're not sitting there saying, oh, I lost because I lost something, or it didn't work out and it was all going to be benefit me. And you sit there and pout for yourself. It's one thing when you pout for yourself. It's another thing when you're like, man, I don't want to let the people down that I care about so much and love. That's why DeBoer has the success he has so fast. And that's why you're going to see the team, like a player-led team, you don't run into necessarily issues, right? You'll have some, but for the most part, those players like keep each other accountable. It's the same thing as when you're working out or someone brought up like fasting. Go through a fast. If you fast with someone else, it's a lot easier than fasting by yourself when you're doing like a diet for fasting, right? Or intermittent fasting. Okay. The thing is, when it really comes down to it, like that's why you watch this and you watch that poise. You bring up John Wooden. John Wooden, man, read that book and then come back and tell me why he had success. DeBoer has a lot of those same qualities. John Wooden is not some wild off the charts dude. Listen to look at his triangle of success or his triangle of what it means to be successful as a human, right? And it's impressive. And I love that about KD. And that's why, again, Kirby has the discipline. Kirby has the mindset. Kirby's very smart. Kirby, you will see he has the things installed he needs to keep a standard at Georgia that will continue to be there. And he does a really, really good job. Different style than DeBoer, right? But their styles are both going to continue to have a lot of success. And their styles are now implemented into their culture of their team. Alabama has a culture, an underlying foundational culture that will continue to maintain, but DeBoer then also gets to build on top of it with his. Kirby was able to build on the expectation of what he thinks Georgia is supposed to be at and what they've been at in the past, and then continue to remodel that house and make it as solid as possible. And they'll continue to do a good job with those. So it's going to be fun, man, to watch how these guys go about their career and who continues to stay 1 and 2. Because I do think that's your two competitors right there for 1 and 2.
Yeah, 100%. Coach Sean, we kind of already have started jumping into Kalen DeBoer at 12 and 2 with an 85.7% win percentage. What do you think of Kalen DeBoer holding the highest win percentage in all of college football against top 25 opponents?
I think Kalen, as far as tactician, as far as motivation, as far as caring about players, everything Jake just highlighted, I think he's one of the best, if not the best, in the country. His background describes that. Now, we can talk about the winning on the field and the national championships at a Power 5 level for Kirby, and that's hands down him. Can't take nothing from that. But if you're talking about a leader of men, you're talking about every stop this guy has been at Every
Mhm.
stop this guy's been at, he's left his touch. He's left his culture. That word, we like to use that word a lot. The culture has shown that this guy is a leader of men everywhere he's been. Kalen DeBoer is one, if not two. He's definitely top two over Ryan Day, over any other coach, over Brian Kelly, over any of these guys. This guy has absolutely won everywhere he's been at the highest level, took teams to national championships. And I think putting him at Alabama is going to extenuate that. I'll wrap it up just by saying it doesn't shock me at all that Caden DeBoer has won, beating a lot of top 25 schools, a lot of top 10, 15, whatever it is, schools. Everything Jake just said, it took the words right out of my mouth. This guy is a leader of men, and you can already tell at the University of Alabama that whatever he's bringing, him and his staff is bringing, the leadership led by Kalen DeBoer, it's picking up with the players. Coach Saban talked about it. It's not hard to see. Everybody who thought we were falling off is pulling out their hair right now because of what Jake just said. And I think great things are even gonna be better in the future. So doesn't shock me at all that Kevin DeBoer is one, and I give his flowers just like I give Kirby his.
Yeah, Kalen is an interesting figure. Very happy he's the head coach at Alabama. I was
Facts.
very excited whenever he was named. Y'all will know. I was always sitting here talking about Washington, that y'all needed to watch what was happening over there. I just can't wait for the season to get here, gentlemen. But we have been going for 2 hours and 20 minutes. I'm going to go around the table, let everybody know where they can find you, because I have decisions to make in terms of whether I need to get a rental car, what's happening with flights. Because if I fly out tomorrow, guys, I got to be up and leaving my house at 4 o'clock in the morning. So it'll be an early flight. Jake, I'll start with you. Where can everybody find all your great content?
Yeah, man. So we kind of changed the name up. We changed the name. We just went with Set because it's hard, easier to search and whatnot. But I got my own channel, Set the Tone College Football. Easy as that. Simple. We just go with that. You guys can jump on, see what content I did. We should be coming out with some more here either today or tomorrow. Because guess what? We got to really talk about what I think the strength is of this team. And Kalen DeBoer actually said it, is the offensive line. I think it's going to be the strength of the team. I do. I'm telling you, I'm excited to watch what goes on this next season, or this upcoming season. But yeah, find me, Set the Tone College Football, or you can search, right down here. You can search at Coach J Mayer, right? All capital letters at Coach_J Mayer. And you can also find my new channel. And then that's also the Twitter. So shoot me a follow, and we try to put stuff out there all the time with different content and videos we do. So we're excited because we're going to have a lot more rolling out together as a team too, as we get closer to season. July 31st, everybody, fall camp. It's time to knock pads.
Love it. Love it. Coach Sean, where can the people find your stuff?
Well, you can find me at JMHO Sports Talk on YouTube and Twitter. That stands for Just My Humble Opinion. We're gonna be cranking it back up real here here in the next week or so, starting next week probably. We're gonna start doing a Tuesday live at 6, as well as a Friday live at 6. We're gonna try to prep this for going into the season. The Tuesday live will be geared towards something, as well as the Friday live will be geared towards something. So we'll go in at 6 o'clock. The guys will be on whenever they can. Tuesdays and Thursdays. We're gonna tap in at 6 o'clock, and please tap in with me, JMHO Sports Talk on Twitter and JMHO Sports Talk on YouTube.
Love it. Love it. Now, ladies, gentlemen, to introduce you to the fourth member of the panel.
Ty.
Go ahead.
Real quick. I got one thing. I just want to say happy birthday, Mom. I love you. It's her birthday today. Love you very, very much. Love you. And I appreciate everything you've done for me and always having my back. So I love you, Mom. Happy birthday.
Shout out to Mom. Shout out to Mama Miro. Shout out to him. And before we get off, shout out to Ty Hayes for putting this together. Always great job at letting us come on. The man, the leader, the man, the myth himself. Shout out to Coach Smook. Shout out to Brinsky. Shout out to Jan716. Shout out to Jason from Hall of Fame Sports. PG. Shout out to Jay from Unfair Sports. Shout out to all these guys in the collective who do a great job. And shout out to my brother Jay Meir. As you already know, awesome content. Shout out to all of you guys. Roll Tide.
First off, happy birthday to Mama Jake.
Thank you.
Second off, the show's nothing without you guys. So
Man,
I
appreciate
can't
that, man.
I can't tell you how much I appreciate y'all coming on every time. Really has become less of a show and more like, just free therapy.
Oh yeah, man.
Facts.
It's always a lot of fun. It's become just exactly what I intended it to be, just a bunch of friends hanging out, talking football. And that was always the goal. And we were lucky to hit it.
Yes.
But there's a fourth member who hasn't gotten to speak, but we always allow them the final word because it's just, I can't eloquate the way they can. And of course, we're talking about the spinning wheel of doom, SWD, and it spins.